What is good, everybody? Welcome to this wild and wacky Wednesday on The Tip-Off. I am your host, Kayla Canarum. The Tip-Off is the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 6-game NBA slate and 13-game MLB slate. Joining me today, we've got Eric Lindquist and Chris Spags. Spags, you missed it. Eric and I were singing Beauty and the Beast before the show, but maybe you can join us another time for that. How are we doing, fellas?
What a shame I missed that. I'm so sad to be going from show to show here, but no, it's the same thing as me. There's many days I'm going from the MLB show right to this show with no time in between, and that's the way I like it. Keep that energy up, and Eric dancing around immediately sucks the energy out of me like an energy vampire on our favorite show, What We Do in the Shadows. But I'm excited to be here with you again, Kayla, if not with Eric.
Colin Robinson.
So
Nobody else knows what we're talking about. It's fine. Creepy paper.
I got nothing.
Don't mind us. All-star team. All-star team.
All-star team, that's right. I'm going to try to pronounce words correctly today and,
lofty goal.
Yeah. Yeah, don't set the bar too high. Come on now.
I mean, you definitely piqued my interest yesterday when I was listening to the show, hanging out and chatting. Look, you take it in stride. I feel like reading somebody else's words, I have to say, harder than people may realize out there because, Kayla does the prep that she does, but also has to, keep up with injury news from our run sheet every show. And it honestly is harder than I've realized recently because I'm jumping into these tip-off shows without doing the run sheet. So I can only imagine you having to read Eric's silly words like piqued. What kind of word is that? Barely.
Who put that in the dictionary?
I know.
Ugh, should be fired.
I have nothing to say to you.
I'm shooting, side action videos, jumping right into this. I skim the run sheet and I definitely missed peaked yesterday.
But now you'll never forget. That's what the show's all about, learning and growing as people. It's not about DFS or betting picks. It's about having a good time and getting better at words.
Well said. All right, y'all, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that's in season. Let's talk really quickly about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code AWESEMO to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Moving right along to our bad beats. Last night we saw Jaylen Brown go insane and pretty much every other piece of chalk fails. So we all know Eric had a miserable go of it. Spags, did you somehow survive the bloodbath that was yesterday?
I didn't know that Eric had a miserable go of it. I don't know what I missed that would have keyed me into that, but I'm sad to hear it. I had a lot of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown and O'Shea Brissett, two of my highest exposed players, so that was very helpful to have. The downside is there were just minefields or land mines everywhere in a minefield of NBA DFS players with guys like Malcolm Brogdon, Kevin Porter Jr. I also had a ton of Kevin Porter Jr., so anybody mad at him today, I get it, but that's what's going to happen when you miss every single shot you take until the fourth quarter of the game. And Kevin Durant too, weird game for him where he only shot 5 times going into the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened there, but ended up making a little bit of money on the night, which I feel like is all you can ever be happy with an NBA DFS.
I did not. Jaden McDaniels, you told me. You said tread lightly. I didn't care. Damn you. So there's that. And then also felt not great about Edmund Sumner because looking at it after the fact, I'm like, I played a 48% owned dude, 50% of my lineups, and that just kind of didn't work out well. I talked about how I wanted to keep some swappability. I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein ended up being serviceable at 3K there. We ended up getting Powell starting, so that makes WCS kind of the guy that you wanted to play there. So I was okay with some of that, but just too much Sumner, too much Kevin Porter Jr. I guess the Porter Jr. thing I'm not so upset about because he just didn't play well. But the Sumner one, I think I probably could have been a little bit smarter about, concerning he was 4K. He's been playing a little bit over his head shooting. So a little regression happened there, and my wallet took the beating.
That's rough.
Yep,
Let's dive into our NBA news. Mike Conley re-aggravated his right hamstring injury and will be out on Wednesday. With that news, Eric, are there any players that pique, that's Pique, thank you, your interest?
Yeah, we got a couple of guys that we're looking at. Also, that was a phenomenal job. I can't tell you how proud I am of you. But yeah, we kind of know the characters. We've had this situation enough this season that we kind of know where to go with Mike Conley off the floor. We have an 896-minute sample size with Jordan Clarkson. He ends up getting a 27% usage rate. Really, kind of the big key about him, though, is that he's going to see increased minutes and not really somebody who seems like a meaningful assist rate by any means. The guy who does see a meaningful assist rate is one Joe Ingles as well, who ends up getting to around 23.3%. I guess you got to take Donovan Mitchell off the floor too for that sample size. But I mean, just a ridiculous spot for both of those plays. I think we have enough, like we can take some shots on the Niangs. We can take some shots on the Bogdanoviches. We got some guys that we can go to, but like Rudy Gobert is really kind of a priority for me as well. I think on this slate, it gives you a little bit of that savings. We're going to want to get to some Russ, some Jokic, some of these ceilings on a Stars and Scrubsy slate. But Rudy Gobert just makes such a good tournament play. I feel like Favors has started to see those minutes come down just even a little bit. And that's enough where if you're getting 34, 35 minutes of Rudy Gobert, just an absolute smash tonight.
So Jordan Clarkson, to me, I love him today. I think he's one of the best plays on the slate by a wide margin. You're going to find a lot of people who think that because he's going to be the chalkiest play of the day, it looks like, on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But I have no issue with it because I think without having Mitchell and without having Mike Conley in there, he goes to about a 1.23 fantasy point per minute guy from my projection for the day. The rates for him, actually usage doesn't go up much more, but how much more usage does Jordan Clarkson need? He's already a 30% usage rate guy anyway. The assist rate, though, does get to 20% with Mitchell and Conley off the floor, and I'm willing to buy in that as being a viable number. Joe Ingles, I think, gets the bigger assist upside, which I think Eric just hinted at as well. But I would say for me, Clarkson, just the guy who's going to get it on both ends. That's a terrible way to say that, but he's going to get the usage, going to get the assist rate. He's going to get the double dog of usage and assist rates for himself today. And I think that, to me, makes him look very appealing. Have no issue with Rudy Gobert, no issue with Joe Ingles or Bojan Bogdanovic. The thing with Clarkson is that there's nobody else who can handle the ball. They're not going to have Trent Forrest handling the ball meaningfully. I think he's the guy who could see a few more minutes, but he's only in for, I think, 12 minutes from Osmo today. So not a lot of minutes going there. Just has to be Clarkson doing everything today, basically filling the role of two guys who've been incredibly productive. So I think that's a really nice spot for him and one wouldn't shock me if I had 100% today.
I've never seen somebody on a 10-game slate show up in the optimal percentage on the Boom Bust tool over 50% of the time over on DraftKings. So letting it be known, Jordan Clarkson, you are correct, sir.
All right. On the other side of that matchup, Sacramento will be without Harrison Barnes tonight, opening up nearly 40 minutes of court time that needs to be filled. So Spags, which Kings should we prioritize in order to monetize this news?
The guy that I still like the most is going to be Tyrese Halliburton. He's not a direct beneficiary of having Harrison Barnes not in the mix, but he's been so good without De'Aaron Fox for the most part, where the rates for him to take a jump upwards, it's sort of hard to pinpoint where his usage should be. But even with the projection today of me having given him 21.5% usage and a 33% assist rate, which the safe projection you can get to without Fox on the floor, he still looks really good to me at his price point. So he's the one I think benefits the most overall. I think Terrence Davis also becomes a more viable value play. Osmo has been for 27 minutes. He's been a guy who over the course of the year has been pretty productive back in Toronto. I think it's been a little bit more productive in Sacramento, but the situation for him too is if Utah somehow blows this game out, which is going to be tougher with no Mitchell, with no Conley, those guys in, you're still going to see probably, see Terrence Davis get that blowout run. So I think to me, he's the guy that I would look to the most. Delon Wright, I think gains an appeal as well, but I think really Halliburton and Terrence Davis to be the ones that I expect to get a lot of exposure to today.
Yeah, I think Halliburton kind of just sticks out as a guy that even at 7,100, I think there can be a ceiling that exists beyond the 40 that we've seen here previously. It's a rookie who's stepping into a new offensive role. And so regardless of what sample size you look at for De'Aaron Fox, I feel like we kind of have to have a little bit of common sense about a rookie stepping into a new situation that hasn't really been there for him yet. He is the centerpiece of this offense, especially when you take Harrison Barnes off the floor now too, alongside Fox. I feel like the assist rates, it's been there the last two. We have 8 and 10 assists the last two, 36 plus minutes against Utah. I know it's a miserable matchup. They're 9-point dogs, but really like getting to Halliburton because I think at 7,100, he provides a 50-plus point ceiling still. As you said, Delon Wright, and then Terrence Davis, if I'm going back over to the Boom Bust tool, the guy that stood out the most to me outside of Clarkson over there, Terrence Davis showing up in an optimal 44.3% of the time at the moment. You're getting some gigantic leverage by playing him in your lineups. I don't think we're going to see that ownership really get there throughout the day too. Like, I think 30%, 35%, there's going to be other value that emerges, but like 3,300 Terrence Davis over on DraftKings specifically, such a great piece on this slate.
Kevin Huerter is doubtful, and Bogdan Bogdanovic and Brandon Goodwin are questionable for the Hawks this evening, which could result in a ton of production that needs to be picked up. Eric, should they both sit? Which Hawks stand out to you the most?
I think this situation is really, really messy. So first of all, you guys know me. I'm going to talk about late swap, locking up roster spots in the very first game right out of the bat of the entire evening. Not my favorite thing in the entire world to do. Also, Chris Dunn only played 12 minutes, but that's 12 minutes. You're basically, 13 minutes. That's basically getting taken off the top of a guy like Lou Williams, who had become super, super popular, who's 4,500. We know that he can go out there and be a little bit of a walking heat check, but hasn't really seen those minutes get up to around 30 all month. The last time he played 30 minutes was on the 2nd of April. And given that's partially an opportunity thing, but I don't know. Lou Williams, I wouldn't be completely sold against the Sixers that I really want to be like investing in him heavily, even if you get both Goodwin and Bogdanovic off the floor. The one guy that I do want to bring up, though, is Danilo Gallinari, who's back in the fray here. He has 3 games back, played 22, 21, and 24 minutes. You know, even at 26, 28 minutes, that usage is going to be up there in the mid-20s, high 20s. Nobody else out there to go score the ball. And then John Collins, who I know that we don't like necessarily targeting him with Clint Capella off the floor, but somebody's got to be scoring for this team. I think I'd rather take my shots on him on FanDuel at 6,900 and try to make some of those plays work. But I'm hoping we get Bogdanovic and Goodwin in so we don't even have to deal with this entire situation and just kind of wait for better spots like Utah and Sacramento.
I'm kind of surprised Goodwin's only questionable given the fact that he was wheeled off the court in that game. And normally, other than when Paul Pierce crapped himself in that one game, going in a wheelchair does mean you're not in the best situation overall. And I guess you could argue he wasn't in the best situation either. But for the Hawks, to me, having Bogdanovic out is going to be the key part, where Huerter we currently have out of the lineup already. Obviously, Trae Young already out of the lineup already. I don't see much upside for anybody in the current configuration with Bogdanovic being expected to play. If he doesn't play, though, I do think that going to, and especially if Goodwin doesn't play, I do think going to Lou Will appeals to me more. I just don't see them giving enough minutes to Chris Dunn. As Eric mentioned, only played 13 minutes last game. Osmo has him playing 17 today. Even that feels like that's probably lofty for him to get much more coming back for as much time as he's missed. Skylar Mays is not a guy who's been too great either. I don't see them wanting to give him a lot of run. So I think that does go to Lou Will, especially if he starts. So I would like to see Bogdan be out. I'd like to see Brandon Goodwin be out to feel that full effect. But if Bogdan's out, I think, if you get Goodwin in, play Goodwin. If you do get Bogdan out and you get Lou Williams in and not get Goodwin in, I hate doing these configurations that we have to do for the show because now it's going to go. If you get no Bogdan and no Goodwin, play Lou Will, but really play whatever guard is left because it's going to be important to get there if Bogdanovic does end up out.
Kemba Walker is out once more for the Celtics, but Jason Tatum and Robert Williams are set to return. Spags, are there any other Celtics that stand out to you still?
I don't really feel that strongly about any of the Boston guys today, just because of having Tatum back in the mix. Jaylen Brown was fantastic yesterday, but the usage rates for him are not quite as prominent, or really all the numbers aren't as prominent without having no Kemba or with having no Kemba out there. Having no Kemba and no Tatum was a really big additive to Jaylen Brown yesterday, but now that he's back in, Brown's price tag, I think you can get there a little bit, but I don't see the need to on this slate where we're going to have some more obvious value. I think the guy maybe you can go to a little bit more is Evan Fournier, who did return to basically what his role was in Orlando, played competent minutes yesterday. The price tag looks okay, but I think Eric would say the same thing that I'm about to say right now, but there's going to be better value that opens up. So going Evan Fournier early in the slate, not a great move. So nothing jumps out meaningfully. If you get some exposure in tournaments, it's fine.
I think Jason Tatum, if you were to take shots on his ceiling, I wouldn't exactly knock you for it. Jaylen Brown, if you wanted to play him on FanDuel, where you have to play 2 small forwards and he's still sitting right around AK 8,100, I wouldn't fault you for that one either. I think that he's kind of a piece that just kind of would fit into your lineups. And we know that he has upside. He displayed it yesterday, but now you do get Tatum back on the floor and Robert Williams on the floor. So let's talk about Robert Williams and just the center spot in general. Right now, over on FanDuel, only coming in around 6% ownership. And then Awesome only has him in for 21 minutes here. If you were to see anything meaningful above 21 minutes to like 23, 24, a lot of those games that we saw upsides from him, Tristan Thompson was out. And now Tristan Thompson still exists, so that's a problem. But even in limited minutes, he's projecting out phenomenally well over 30 fantasy points over on FanDuel. The only problem with him is that the center, it's just stacked. It's absolutely stacked. We have Jared Allen, who is just underpriced for his new role that exists when you get a guy like Hartenstein 29, just that boosts his minutes even fractionally up to 32, 33 minutes. Nikola Jokic, Rudy Gobert, who I talked about. Andre Drummond is super cheap over there, still at 6,900 on FanDuel. It's kind of a product of the slate that I'm not going to get to as many Celtics, but on a 10 gamer, that's kind of natural.
You all don't even want to know what I think about Tristan Thompson. It has nothing to do with basketball.
Well, I mean, wasn't it just, I heard he might have been messing around here.
There's some girl who's like claiming that she hooked up with him and now is like talking about it a lot. I don't know why. I saw that headline, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Kayla.
I just he will never learn. I don't know. I don't get it. Chloe deserves better. Yeah, he's just, messing around with some IG models. Nothing new.
I love Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian because I love Kourtney Kardashian. That's like, if I had to pick one, I love her. No, she's fantastic. She's always been my favorite of the Kardashians. Not that I have a strong lean by any means, but Travis Barker, good for you, dude.
Listen, I could talk Kardashians all day.
We're probably not going to, that's a different show, I think.
That's a different show. I love Kourtney. I wish she and Scott would get back together, but she seems like she's really happy. So
they're both having fun, it seems.
Scott Disick, are you kidding me?
The Lord, I want them back together. I do.
I'm taking this segment off. You're in timeout.
All right, back to basketball. And finally, Kawhi Leonard is doubtful, and Nicholas Batum and Amir Coffey are questionable for the Clips. It's hard to spell out exactly what to do in this situation, but fortunately for me, I have the two. But fortunately for me, I have you two to spell it out for me. Good Lord. Eric, are there any PLAYs that stick out to YOU? Should they all SIT? Someone was feeling smart when they wrote this.
Honestly, we're so dumb. Oh, man. Okay. Well, also, just the fact that you couldn't get through that sentence made it even better for me. I was going to take this segment off because you defended Scott Disick in any way, shape, or form, but I will push through. Paul George sticks out phenomenally well, 9,800. I can't do shows with Spags anymore, I don't think. We just laugh. Every time I watch him laugh, it's a chain reaction, basically. But yeah, I think Marcus Morris sees a little bit of a bump there too. Zubats, put him in that entire bucket of centers that you can take shots on FanDuel, 5,200 over there. But really, it becomes kind of a messy situation. Amir Coffey actually matters that he's going to be out. If you get Batum off the floor there too, I think it's a little bit of a bump for Terrence Mann, but now he's kind of also seen an inflated tag. I just want to let it be known that we know the Clippers, what their potential for madness and hysteria is on any given slate. So just keep your phone alerts on, because the news guide will keep you informed on everything that's going down throughout this entire day. But just be ready for something after lock to just weirdly happen. I don't think it's something where like Kawhi Leonard will all of a sudden get ruled in from doubtful or anything. I would hope not, but I'm pretty sure that something wacky can always take place. Late scratches have been happening. Whether, I don't know if it's like the Doc Rivers Ty Lue connection, but like the Sixers and the Clippers have just been disasters to deal with all season long.
Some mind games from the Clippers always with their injury reporting. And I just have to say, for the run sheet, you wouldn't expect that kind of shenanigans on the Spags run sheet here, making Kayla have to read weird things. That wouldn't happen on my watch. But either way, I have to be mean to Eric.
Fortunately for me, I have you two to spell it out for me. Tell me where the mistake is.
The PLAY of this team seems to me like it would still be Paul George. I don't love Paul George as a core play today. I think to me, he's a guy that I just want to get more than the field on. Projected for single-digit ownership on DraftKings, which to me is shocking to see, given the fact that he has to play well in the spot against Phoenix, or Phoenix will roll these guys. And I do think Paul George last game was an aberration. He killed me at 40% of him that last time out, and he was just awful in every possible way. But I do think going back to him today, because of the fact he was so awful, just seems like a logical move. Does get an uptick to about 35% usage in core time without Kawhi. That is going to be a benefit here. Minutes wise, I see Terrence Mann also benefiting, but he's one of those guys that I've been talking about a lot. As Eric mentioned earlier in the show yesterday with Jaden McDaniels, just guys that are, getting more minutes, but aren't guaranteed to see those minutes. And I don't have producing more per minute always give me some degree of pause. And Terrence Mann being a little bit less productive than usual per minute. So that to me would not put him in consideration really meaningfully. He's also not even that value price. So Paul George really is the one that I think I'd have the most confidence here. And you're just getting him above the field at single digit ownership. And the ceiling is there, 60, 70 fantasy points. We've seen it from him games without Kawhi. So no issue going there. Just wouldn't go crazy on it.
Did I forget the S on plays?
Maybe. There were a lot of issues, I think.
There was a meltdown that occurred in that sentence. It was adorable / terrifying. I'm worried about you.
I'm going faster than what's coming out of my mouth. I'm like reading ahead, and it's just this whole thing. Maybe I'm dyslexic. Who knows?
Is that a thing from your mom? Does your mom talk very fast?
Yeah.
I was going to say, generally, for whatever reason, I don't know. This goes into the theory of Eric Lindquist when it comes to mother-daughter relationships and such. But I feel as though women really they take off the speed and cadence of their mother. Just like it's the same reason that you look at the mother for the future to be like, oh, this is what you're marrying in terms of what they're going to look like in 30 years. I'm going to stop talking.
Just because you're wearing glasses doesn't mean you're all of a sudden some therapist, Eric. Okay,
the Daily Stoic. Down. I read
Eric
it every
is so
morning.
close to so many different things, where it was like almost sensual and like a Penthouse Letters kind of ways. He's talking about the mother and daughter, and he's going. It's all over the place. Yesterday you offend Canadians. Today it's all mothers and daughters. I don't know what you're going for here.
Love Canada. Love Canada.
Shout out to Diane though. She's a doll. We call her the Energizer Bunny. She just goes nonstop.
So there you go. I mean, that's like a pure fact. Like as if I needed more evidence. Like you take after her.
Oh, all right. I'll take it.
Is Diana a hot mom? I feel like I have to ask for the YouTube chat because I know we're all thinking it. I feel like we have to ask.
Diane's a cool mom. She's a cool mom.
Oh, she's the cool mom.
She is
See that
aging
pivot?
well.
See that
She's
pivot?
aging
She's
well.
she's not an average mom. She's a cool mom.
She's a cool mom. It's a Mean Girls reference. Spags. Mean Girls. Everything I say comes from Mean Girls, mostly. Also, the chat really has a lot of opinions about the Kardashians. Holy crap. All right.
Really?
Oh, yes. We
I'm going to take the dangerous foray into and see what's going on.
Let's move into our one-on-one in these battles between stars. Which player would you guys rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? Jared Allen disappointed the entire universe on Monday. Wow, that's aggressive with his egregious performance, but now draws a fantastic Magic matchup. Robert Williams is returning for an extended hiatus, but will be needed immediately to right the ship for the slumping Celtics. Which would you rather roster this evening, Allen or Williams Spags?
For me, it's Jared Allen in a landslide. I just don't trust the Robert Williams minutes coming off of injury. That's been one of his big bugaboos as part of the Celtics roster. I've never said the word bugaboo out loud. Felt pretty good. So prepare to hear me say bugaboo more. One of the biggest bugaboos of Robert Williams is he gets hurt a lot, and they have an aversion to playing him high minutes because of that. And I think that's something that they're going to be mindful of because you really want Robert Williams in there ready to go for the playoffs. We're now close enough to the playoffs that I don't think you push him too hard. I think it comes pretty close to a 24-24 split with him and Tristan Thompson, and I don't think that's enough. Whereas Eric talked about the situation for Jared Allen earlier in the show, where not having Isaiah Hartenstein back in the mix because of the concussion protocols for him, scoping up more run for Jared Allen, more potential to see more run as well. So I have him being a much better play overall by a pretty wide margin. So Jared Allen, I think potentially a core play today, obviously going to be reflective of ownership and all that, but a very strong play today who to me would be very far ahead of Robert Williams in my confidence levels.
Spags, really quick, fun fact. My first car, I named it Bugaboo because it was a bug.
Oh, okay. There it is. So that was your bugaboo.
It was my bugaboo.
I think every girl that I've ever met, their first car was a bug. I don't know. Is that a fact? I don't know. I feel like, nope. Okay, we're going to move on. I don't really know what I'm saying today.
It was a black bug with zebra seat covers and a license plate cover that said I'd rather be dancing.
All right, we're going to keep going. So Boston Celtics right now are currently 6th in the Eastern Conference. They need to start winning. They're tied with the Miami Heat here at the moment. There's some need for them to get Tatum out there and play. Robert Williams go out and play. They need to start winning some of these games. Losing to OKC was just egregious. It was a huge bugaboo in the Celtics way of looking at things. They got to stop doing that crap because they need to start winning basketball games. So I think there is an upside for Robert Williams to get to 24, 25 minutes. But that being said, they're around the same price on FanDuel, and there's a huge salary disparity on DK. Although I'm still going to side with Jared Allen in both of them. Having seen the situation many teams before, Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles will step into elevated roles with news that Mike Conley will be sidelined tonight. In this battle between teammates, who are you prioritizing, Eric, the most in this slate, Clarkson or Ingles? Yeah, so going to the boom bust tool, as I was talking about earlier, Jordan Clarkson just jumps out in such a ridiculous way right now, coming through with a boom percentage of nearly 58%. Right now, 10, you're getting some massive leverage there, 41% ownership, but still showing up in the optimal 51.5% of the time over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I guess it could be a little bit closer, but it's still not because Jordan Clarkson's 6,300 over there. So like looking at him and Joe Ingles, like comparing the two, like he's going, like Ingles is going even a little bit over-owned. I mean, this is just Jordan Clarkson's slate, and if he doesn't play well, so be it, but he's as close to a lock as what I've had on a slate in a long time.
Yeah, I like Joe Ingles that we talked about earlier in the show, but I have Joe Ingles being about a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy today because of the uptick that he'll get from not having Conley and Donovan Mitchell out there. But Clarkson, 1.23 fantasy points per minute in my projection. And actually, Osmo has him a little bit higher too, so be a little bit higher for Alex and our data team. And I think that to me just kind of says it all. Clarkson's going to be able to do everything here. And it's not a situation like Kevin Porter Jr. either, where there isn't a Christian Wood out there or Kelly Olynyk who are guys that could do a little bit of everything. You have Ingles who's going to do a little bit of everything, but he's not going to take every possession. And Jordan Clarkson too, not like Kevin Porter Jr. yesterday. I feel like it's just going to be the one that people compare to. But Kevin Porter Jr. kind of laid back when he saw his shot wasn't falling. That is not one of the things Jordan Clarkson is known for. In fact, his bugaboo would be not shooting more. And I think that's something for him that he'll be able to shoot all he wants. He'll be able to get some extra assists. Everything looks great for him today. He projects way higher than you could possibly imagine. So Jordan Clarkson, a guy that I like a lot and will have in pretty much every lineup. Joe Ingles, a guy I'll be happy to get some of. So those are two different plays completely.
And last but not least, Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook have indisputably the highest ceilings that exist on this slate. If you can only roster one, however, who are you rolling with, the Joker or Westy Spags?
So for me, and I hate to pile on to Kayla here and say I'm not going with Westbrook, but I'm not going with Westbrook here. I do think it is a Jokic slate for me once again. And I like Nikola Jokic, obviously, in most situations. The issue for him in the last couple of games, and I think maybe it throws people off the scent a little bit, is that he has been playing a lot of fourth quarters because the games have been out of control for the most part. He's been doing his job early enough and getting results. And Jokic, I think the ceiling is there for him to have 70, 80 fantasy points if New Orleans can stay competitive. It's only a 4-game spread here going against Denver, or going for Denver, but going in this game. So in the spot, I have no issue with Westbrook today, but he projects to me a little bit worse than Jokic. Jokic to me, more raw points, better value play. I would take Jokic, but you're not going to really complain about these guys. And if you get them both in a lineup today, great.
Positional scarcity is the reason that I'm going to take Russell Westbrook. If you look at the top end over on DraftKings, you have Russell Westbrook sitting at 11,100. You have Fox out, James out, Mitchell out, Young out. Then it becomes Damian Lillard at 9,300, Ja Morant 8,200. I like both of them in that game environment, in that late night hammer, 235 total. Everything looks great there, but Russell Westbrook just so consistent on that top end. If you go over to center, there's just so many good plays that exist on this slate. Like you go to Jared Allen, who we talked about, Rudy Gobert, Yusuf Nurkic only had to play limited minutes against Indiana yesterday, so he should be near a full go. Robert Williams is back in the fray. Not so much a play on DraftKings, but on FanDuel for sure. There's just so many guys that I want to be playing at a center position. And then we're also waiting on the Steven Adams news, which could make Hernan Gomez extremely viable as well, should he be in the starting lineup once more. So I think because of the position and because there aren't as many guys to pay up for 50, 55 guaranteed points like you can with Westbrook, I say that knowing full well that he burned me a couple slates ago, maybe like 2 or 3 slates ago. But I mean, Russell Westbrook, for all intents and purposes, is just the most consistent point guard that we have on that top end, putting up 55, 60 on the daily. So I'm going to take him. Nikola Jokic, I definitely like, but I'm going to get to substantially less of him as a product of this slate.
Okay. And now over to No House Advantage's props of the day for key players. Guys, do you like the over or under on them? And how many points would you assign? First up, we've got Anthony Davis, 27.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Eric.
Start investing in Anthony Davis pretty much all the time going up here. As the minutes start to trend up, you're going to see the projections start to trend up. I think that's kind of what's expressed over on No House Advantage today, where you have static props where nothing's changing. They basically have kept the same number for him there, sitting around 27.5. You can go the points and rebounds route as well, 24.5 there. But anything on Anthony Davis from now until these numbers, like, we're going to be able to project his minutes and start to trend up and taking tournament shots on him in DFS and to take some overs and props. And like from now until we see that big ceiling game, because it's definitely coming, and then it's going to be too late to capitalize on some of these overs. So start taking them now.
Yeah, here's the thing for me with Anthony Davis. I don't like him in DFS very much today. I think in Washington, you could sort of make the case a little bit more, but people, I think, are forgetting that he had underperformed a lot before he was out for the injury, or at least on a game-to-game basis, wasn't having the same ceiling, both he and LeBron. And I think people expect him to be, this all-encompassing play now with LeBron out. And he's just kind of been the same dude he was with LeBron in, because you have enough guys who are taking usage away around him. The Andre Drummonds, the Schroeders, the Kuzmas, all these guys are taking just enough chipping away at Anthony Davis and what he could be compared to his Pelicans days, that I don't see him having the same ceiling for DFS. But a no house advantage, this line just doesn't reflect what the situation is for him. And that's the big part of it, where I'm projected for 22.5 regular points today, 7.5 rebounds. That's enough to get him to this prop. And that doesn't mean he's a good DFS play, but a no house advantage, the line just doesn't reflect that his minutes limit has now been lifted. Osmo has been for 33 minutes today. It's hard to imagine a world where Anthony Davis fails. So to me, that's probably the 10-pointer or no house advantage today.
Spags, right back to you for Terry Rozier, 5.5 assists. What are you taking?
So Rozier is one of those guys that, to me, I've been playing a little bit more recently. And I guess if you want to sprinkle in the revenge factor for Terry Rozier, maybe that does make him better. But the guy who benefits more is Devontae Graham for assists. And I think, to me, right now, he looks like the better play to Terry Rozier. But I do think on no house advantage, I don't mind going to the assist prop, because Rozier does get a little bit of an uptick in that number without having LaMelo Ball, without having Gordon Hayward out there. And it hasn't been there reliably for him game to game. But in this spot against Boston, I think he does gobble up a few more possessions, whether it be just getting shots up or just assisting more. I think that does bode well for Rozier. So I'd take the over here, nowhere near the confidence level for me compared to the Anthony Davis prop, but still probably a 5 or 4 pointer for me on no house advantage.
Yeah, so he's got two guys above him now that we have a 277-minute sample size now with Brad Wanamaker as well, with Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball off the floor, has a 35.5% assist rate in that time as well. So you're adding another ball handling guard who's seeing some of those assists go his way. Also starting to see some increased minutes there. Then going to Devontae Graham, has a 31.7% assist rate. So you've got Terry Rozier with the third highest assist rate on his own team sitting in that spot. 5.5 is a big number to get to in that kind of a scenario. So as much as I like taking shots on Terry Rozier and his ceiling, not really feeling this at 5.5. It's just too big of a number, and that's also expressed in the Osmo projections.
And Jaylen Brown, 3.5 3-pointers made Eric.
So we just got done covering a lot of the Celtics. We got Jason Tatum back. We've got Robert Williams back, but 3.5 is a big number to be getting to as well for Jaylen Brown. I do like these 3-point props, because basically what you're doing is you're basically saying, what is their opportunity of shooting it? We've been targeting Giannis, where it's like, if he goes 2 for 3 and beats you in that direction on 1.5, so be it. If Jaylen Brown goes 4 for 10, so be it. I'm okay losing that direction, but this is still a pretty decent under to be taking. Getting Jason Tatum out there, coming on the second half of a back-to-back, I'm gonna definitely take the under on Jaylen Brown today.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown, to me, the under here does seem for Osmo to be shading the way that he would go, with 68% chance of hitting the under. And that's where I have it too. I have him hitting 2.93 pointers today. So definitely not crazy that he can beat that number, but it does seem like a spot where having Tatum back in, maybe that line that was made on the assumption that Tatum might be out again. And I think, not having Kemba in is going to open up some opportunity, but having Fournier in the mix sort of mitigates it. So the net result for me is that I think it's a better under than an over. Not terribly high confidence. Again, same for me, probably a mid-tier one, but I do think the under looks like the better play. 67% chance to me seems like a reasonable under bet to be making.
And as always, friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage. Download the No House Advantage app and use promo code OSMO to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. We don't have time to talk about it, but Eric, you are very popular in the chat right now.
For good reasons or bad reasons? I have no idea.
I don't know what brought this up, but they're all making me laugh. I don't know. Just like how your first concert was like Wiggles at 31 or something.
My first concert was Collective Soul when I was 10, letting it be known.
Okay.
There's one joke
that up.
There's one joke that seemed unwarranted, but it did make me laugh about how you would be the altar boy that makes the priest uncomfortable. I don't know what that, I don't love it, but it's a creative
we're gonna divert to the diamond now for some biggest top bets and plays.
What's wrong with you? Really though? Really? What's wrong with you? Go ahead, keep going. Keep going. We gotta go.
I'm just uncomfortable with your silly singing and impressions. What I thought it meant. I don't know where you're taking this with your perverse mind.
I have no idea. It's definitely my fault. My fault for sure.
It's my fault for bringing up the chat. Shouldn't have gone there. All right, really quickly. We have 4 minutes. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? Stanton plus 250, Walsh plus 270, Alonso plus 275, Trout plus 275, and Tatis plus 280. Eric.
Oh my God. So Fernando Tatis, I think up against Widener, you get to also one thing that I guess I haven't been factoring as much in these home run props that I want to let it be known. You also get some road teams that get that extra guaranteed spot to be at bats. They're in Arizona. So 9 innings, you maybe get another at bat possibly for Fernando Tatis hitting at near the top of the order there. So I really want to go that direction.
It's Tatis, another guy who looks a little bit too owned on the DFS sites today, where you're going to see him about 30% owned on DraftKings. That's not a number you're normally wanting to play a guy a lot, but for prop bets, this is where you can go and sort of get your exposure to him. And going against Widener, Park also expected to be open today for Arizona, so a little bit hot Arizona weather coming in, about an 85-degree day it looks like there. And Widener's a guy too who's been shockingly lucky, I think, with his results so far, where he has a 5.2 xFIP. That's going to get worse. He's still been giving up a 5% home run rate, so everything sort of goes well here. Where I think especially if you're not playing enough Tatis on your DFS sites today because of the ownership there, just taking this prop bet for him hitting a home run, I think seems like a very logical move.
Spags with the weather drop. Love it. Biggest arm. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? And which is the worst? We've got DeGrom, 10.5. Glasnow, 8.5. Rodon, 7.5. Kershaw, 7.5. And Greinke, 5.5 Spags.
So Glasnow is the guy. Again, this is the sort of the opposite here, where I think Glasnow is the best pitcher on this slate for DFS by a pretty wide margin. Lineup construction is the only thing that's going to make you get off of him today. But I do think overall he's still the best play. And we've talked on the show, like, I don't mind trying to find ways to go to the lower odds guys just to get some sort of ability to, to target players that people aren't going after. But that's more for DFS, I think, than it is for, these sort of prop bets, where Glasnow has the best arm talent on the slate by a wide margin of 39% K rate for him over the last season. Going back to 2019 to 26.5% K rate. So he's been a monster facing an Oakland team that's got power that gives you some concern, but the strikeouts will be there for him. 6 guys that strike out above league average in their lineup. So I think it's a really nice spot for Glasnow to take this prop today.
Yeah, 39.7% K rate here right off the bat. Combine it with last season, 36.9%. That's just big numbers to be getting to. We can move on. Tyler Glasnow is definitely it.
All right. With that said, moving on to good dog, bad dog.
Oh, there's so many dogs.
What's happening? Like a pound today.
DeVille here?
Eric, really quickly, give us your good dog and your bad dog for the sake of time.
Oh, okay. So I'm probably going to be going the bad dog's definitely going to be let's go Sacramento, hosting Utah. Still, Utah's just got so much ammunition there. You take Harrison Barnes off the floor. As much as I want to be targeting some of these guys in DFS, like Terrence Davis, Tyrese Halliburton, no thank you. That'll be my bad dog. My good dog, I was trying to find, what I wanted to have my betting card be here today, and there really wasn't a whole lot. I did bet the over of Portland and Memphis. So head over to OddsShopper there. You can shop a couple of those numbers. It's already gone up from around 239.5 to 240.5. Not that that's a substantial jump, but it seems as though it's getting some good money going that direction. But from a line perspective, I don't see a whole lot that I want to do today.
I think for my good dog, I'll take New Orleans. I think they're going to be very live in this game against Denver to actually win. I think covering, it's only a 4-point spread. So, you're not getting a whole lot of reasons to be afraid of that one. But New Orleans covering a 4-pointer against Denver, I think is fine. But I also don't mind taking them to win outright. And I think my bad dog would be Sacramento. I do like Sacramento's guys as players. I think there's a chance to hang in there to the fourth quarter just because Utah is also going to be undermanned. But I think in this spot, I just don't find that they're going to be covering by the end of the game. And I think that's the main thing that I look at, where you can hang in, be viable for DFS, but not end up there at the end of it all. I think Sacramento's just not going to have the guns to keep up with even a shorthanded Utah team.
Spags, give us your player or game that is going to be a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate.
It has to be Jordan Clarkson. I think I mentioned it here. I'm not gonna shy away from it, despite whatever the critics may say. 100% Jordan Clarkson. That's going to be my exposure today.
I'm going to be way over the field on 18% Russell Westbrook over on DraftKings, just kind of unloading the clip there.
And Eric, your fade of the day.
Fate of the day, let's go with any of these Charlotte guards going up against Boston. Not the best spot, gaining quite a bit of traction. I'm gonna find other places to go.
Yeah, I think my fate of the day is probably, it's relative to the ownership here. I feel like Damian Lillard, somebody wouldn't shock me to see the ownership come up for the reasons that Eric talked about earlier, positionality and all of that. I do think Lillard, to me, on DraftKings looks a bit overowned. On FanDuel, the price tag, I think, makes it harder to avoid. But I don't know that I want to go crazy on Lillard today, when historically CJ McCollum's been the guy who's carved up Memphis more in that small sample size stuff. But it's something to keep in mind here that McCollum has, for whatever reason, had a lot better results against Memphis over the years.
Well done, fellas. Sorry about that. I know we had to speed through today's show. We only had 40 minutes with you. Thanks to Eric and Spags. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. We'll be back with you tomorrow on the tip-off at, I believe, 4 p.m. Eastern. The Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock are up NEXT on the same stream, so stay tuned on this LINK. Eric, well done.
Thank
See you guys
so
tomorrow.
Much. Altar Boy out.
No Chill Phil says, Philly guy probably getting a cheesesteak. It's Philli if you want to keep with the standard.
We got to get shirts saying Philly guy for you.
We should, and just misspelled like that. I should put the whole email on a shirt, on the back of a shirt.
On the back.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. I'm Dave Loughran, and we got a special show for you today. Follow me at Lafayette_D. That's special too, at LOUGHY_D. And help welcome my friends, Adam Scher at Ship My Money DFS and Rimpack. You've seen him a lot at the top of the leaderboards, been absolutely crushing it lately. We figured we'd mix it up today. Hit him up at Rimpack, RYNPAK on Twitter. Now, Rimpack, this all went down in an interesting way. So what happened was Adam's internet went out, back to the Ship My Modem days, and he wasn't sure that he'd be in good enough shape to be able to do this. So we said, all right, let's go to Alex. All right, so Alex on board, but he got the COVID shot and he's not feeling great. So it was going to be the three of us. And now Adam jumps back into the picture because his internet's back. So what's going on, man? Glad to have you on the show with us today.
Yeah, glad to be doing it. Are you talking to me or him?
I'm talking to Rimpack, but it doesn't matter here. I mean, I'm not happy to have you on the show. I'm on the show with you. More
elongated answer, but I'm doing good.
Good. What's up, Rimpack?
I'm doing well. Excited to join you guys too. It's actually I just wrapped up my finals week at grad school, so it's just excited to just talk about some 10-game basketball.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Don't do that
today. Back to the old three-man show days. Yeah, no, I'm good. I think less excited to talk about a 10-game basketball slate than I would be if I just finished grad school finals.
Yeah, no question. Now we got 10 games to talk about, and a lot of moving parts here. This Atlanta team against Philly is definitely in question with a lot of play. I mean, the backcourt could look vastly different in just a few minutes, maybe an hour. That's why you tune in to Live Before Lock, of course, coming up directly after this on the exact same stream. There's a ton to get into. Adam, the same question I ask you all the time before we welcome everybody in is your thoughts on this slate. You wrote the deep dive today, totally free at awesemo.com. By the way, were you able to write it?
Yeah. I used like my phone hotspot for the whole day. I just wasn't sure if it would hold up for the show.
Probably not. Thoughts on this slate? Is it a balanced spot? Are we going stars and scrubs? Are we waiting on news? What do you think out of the gate?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird slate for a 10-gamer because, like, you're going to have value with there being 10 games in April. But as far as the payoff options go, you have Jokic, you have Westbrook at the top, you have Embiid. But, like, outside of that, there's none of the normal, like, superstars on the slate. And then you have a really strong mid-range because with Utah, you're missing Conley and Mitchell. So it opens up a bunch of guys there in a really good spot. It's just kind of a weird slate where I think there's some very strong plays, but it'll just naturally end up a little bit less stars and scrubby than most 10-game slates. I think just because there's limited guys to pay up for, and there's a very strong mid-range, very strong like 9K tier as well. So a little bit different than normal. Yeah,
it certainly is. I say we dive into this one. We're happy to have everybody with us. Hit that thumbs up. Not for me. Do it for your boy Rimpack. Join us on the Deeper Dive, the first three-man show the three of us have done together. Show a little love out there and subscribe to the channel. As you know, we just became the biggest DFS channel on the YouTubes. Pretty proud of that one. Thanks to all of you guys supporting us, subscribing, and jumping into these shows each and every day. Hit that notification bell if you want to know when we go live. And you want to join the YouTube community here? You want to join Team Awesemo? Hit that little join at the bottom. It's like $2.99. I always say like $2.99. It is $2.99. You get the cool emojis, you get the badges, and a bunch of other perks. So, I think it's worth it. I did it because they wouldn't let me just go in the back end and do it myself. Pat Bain, thank you for the super chat. Says new to Awesemo, hoping to get rich. Just slammed the monster. Let's fucking go. All right, Pat, glad to have you here. Rimpack, you want to dive into this one?
Let's ride.
All right, Orlando and Cleveland starting out with an absolute banger. Orlando 4-point dogs against the Cavs, 210.5 total. Actually was even lower earlier in the day. Terrence Ross is sidelined for Orlando. Aside from that, though, just your usual suspects. Otto Porter Jr. still not playing. I don't think Devin Kennedy is going to be playing anytime soon either. Do you like anything from Orlando against Cleveland in one of the slower paced games of the night?
Yeah, so on the Orlando side of things, I mean, it's a garbage basketball team, and they're playing another garbage basketball team. The only real interest I'd have is potentially taking some chances on Wendell Carter Jr. I know the opportunity cost at center is high, but he's playing around 30 minutes to catch an upside. Yeah, that could happen. But The Orlando side is really ugly. The other guy who stands out to me is Chuma Akiki, who's playing around 30 minutes. But in tournaments, you can play guard roulette with Anthony, Gary Harris, and RJ Hampton. But it's really hard to go anywhere here with any sort of confidence. And Gary Harris is coming in with some significant amount of ownership at $3,600 against Cleveland over there in FanDuel. It's easy to move off of that, in my opinion, just because we know who he is at this point. He's fallen mightily in terms of his career outlook. He played 35 minutes last time, which is the only thing going for him, but he only put up 20 fantasy points. And I don't think that's going to do it for you on a slate this big.
Yeah, Adam, Gary Harris is like around a 0.6 DraftKings point per minute guy this season. If you're playing him for the minutes, understandable, but on a 10-game slate, like what type of mental gymnastics do you have to do in order to convince yourself that Gary Harris getting the minutes is enough to make him viable?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about him in the deep dive today for probably the first time in at least a year. Yeah. And it's, for one, he played the minutes last game, like Green Pat said. His production with Orlando still hasn't been good. He's at 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute. He's most likely just not a very good player at this point. But his usage and his assist percentage have climbed with Orlando. He's up to a 20% usage rate. So, I mean, you can make the case for him. But like Rinpak was saying, if he's going to get a bunch of ownership, Gary Harris isn't really the type of guy that you're concerned about getting away from, because it's much more like he's a quote unquote good play because of how cheap he is and because he's going to play minutes, not because there's a really good chance that he single-handedly wins you a tournament or anything. It's more about what else gets in your lineup. So the chances of Gary Harris being the one to bury you if you don't have him at high ownership are pretty low. I agree with that. He's still just not producing at a high rate. As far as the other guys here, Cole Anthony, we know has a pretty high ceiling. Chuma Okeke's the guy that stood out the most to me, though. 4,900 on DraftKings, 5K on FanDuel. He's averaging a little over 31 minutes per game since Orlando traded everyone away. He's at 0.88 DraftKings points per minute. Not the highest usage guy at about 18%, but he contributes enough in the way of rebounds, assists, steals, blocks that he's a decent fantasy producer. But again, there's nothing really on this team that stands out to me as something that I'm prioritizing on the entire slate.
What about Cleveland, Adam? Because they're at least dealing with injuries to make it slightly more enticing. Colin Sexton's out. Nance is done for the year. Prince has been out for a while. He's done for the year. But then you've got Isaiah Hartenstein also landing on the injured list. He's sidelined. Dellavedova's out. These might not be big names, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the front court rotation, save for Dellavedova, it does make an impact.
Yeah, for sure. I think Cleveland, it's obviously a good matchup against Orlando, still a relatively low implied total, but there are spots you can look to here because they are so shorthanded. They have 5 normal rotation pieces missing. They have 2 other fringe rotation pieces missing. And we saw really big minutes last game. We've seen Darius Garland played 40 minutes against the Wizards 2 games ago, played about 34 minutes last game and lost about 4 minutes to garbage time. So if this game is competitive between 2 bad teams, there's a good chance you're looking at another 38 to 40 minutes from Darius Garland, who is a little over a fantasy point per minute guy without Sexton on the floor this year. Cedi Osman played 37 minutes against the Wizards, 38 minutes in the next game against the Raptors. He's been priced up, but there's no real reason to think he's not giving you another 36 to 38 minutes again tonight. He's a 0.8 DraftKings point per minute guy in his starts this year, so that's still decent value even at his salary. The salary just means that he has he's a little bit riskier because, it's a lot easier to fail at 5K than at 3,700, but still, I think a good value. And then you look to Jarrett Allen at center, who I think is likely to give us another 34 or 35 minutes because he is missing his backup in Hartenstein. The front court in general is shorthanded, and Allen's been over a fantasy point per minute guy this year. And then you get this Orlando team that has allowed, I believe it's the second most offensive rebounds per game over the last month. They're in the top 5 or top 10 in total rebounds and offensive rebounds allowed as well. Defensive rebounds are second. So this is a team that hasn't been rebounding well, and Allen can take advantage of that. And then the final piece, Dean Wade played 32 minutes last game. I don't expect that to happen again because if you look at the rotation, he played the final 18 to 19 minutes of the game. Kevin Love didn't play at all in the fourth quarter, but he still played 12 to 13 first half minutes. And if you're going to get 24 to 26 minutes from Dean Wade at $3,500, I still think that's a reasonable point per dollar value.
Yeah, we had a comment in chat, Rinpak, saying, from Jordan Burkhardt, 1st to 80 wins this game. It does feel that way, but it also doesn't keep us from targeting players when a team is dealing with a lot of absences. So Cedi Osman in our boom bust tool is top 4 in optimal lineup probability. That's pretty significant. Dean Wade is in the top 7. Matter of fact, right now we have 3 Cleveland players in the top 10. Are you buying into that?
This game is really relevant in terms of DFS purposes based off our projected ownership. And in a 10-game slate, this being the first game to like tip off as well, like I think it's a lot of merit to just pivoting off a lot of heavily owned guys, especially a guy like Cedi Osman, who in his career has never been consistent in terms of consistent fantasy production. Dean Wade obviously played a ton of minutes last time after what Kevin Love's debacle inbound pass. And I think pivoting to other guys on Cleveland make a lot of sense, like Jared Allen, Darius Garland. I know they're a lot more expensive, but in tournaments, those guys have real upside where in a 10-game slate, you need your near min salary guys to put up 30 plus fantasy points to really take down anything. And your upper like salary guys like Garland and Allen, who have shown to put up 50 fantasy points. Maybe Allen does in the spot versus Wendell Carter and Orlando. And I don't hate going to Kevin Love. I do think he's a lot closer to playing 30 minutes in a matchup like this. And he's a guy that in the past has been an amazing fantasy producer, but he just hasn't shown that of late. Obviously, injuries have nagged him. Did you guys see his post-game conference that he said he is a viable piece to take a team to a contender? What team do you think Kevin Love should get traded to next in the offseason?
That's a question for Lofty.
Why do you say that?
Because I just don't pay enough attention to the actual NBA to have an opinion.
Where would he go to be a contender?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. So like already a decent team. Could you put him on the Blazers, a team that needs depth outside of guys like Lillard and McCollum in the backcourt and Yusuf Nurkic at center? I mean, what are they doing at the 4 that's consistent?
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? Throw Covington at the 3.
Yeah, and don't play Melo.
And don't play Carmelo Anthony, right?
Yeah. I thought another one would have been like if these Warriors could find a way to sign and trade Oubre and Wiseman and somehow land him there and really just take their 3-point game to the next level.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Look, there's a lot of teams I think that he could go to and make them better. I don't believe that Kevin Love is done by any stretch of the imagination, but just so we get through this one in time, anything else from Cleveland, Rimpak?
Yeah, that's really about it. It's a really spot to pivot off of ownership here.
Okay, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Adam, let me throw this one to you. This is where it gets a little out of control. Trae Young and DeAndre Hunter, the second one obviously, are out. Kevin Huerter's doubtful. And then Bogdan Bogdanović landed on the injury report. He is questionable along with Brandon Goodwin. So in the event that, let's just assume Huerter's already out, that Bogdanović and Goodwin are out, that means that guys like Chris Dunn and Skylar Mays start getting minutes, and maybe Lou Williams actually creeps close to 30, but I do have some reservations about that. How do you break down this backcourt right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot of moving parts right now. Fortunately, this is a 7:00 game, so we should have the news with plenty of time to adjust. But, you look at the last game that they played, Trae Young was obviously out, Lou Williams was out, but you had Huerter in, you had Bogdanović in. Brandon Goodwin started and played 28 minutes, would have played a few more minutes if that game had been more competitive. If Goodwin is in, I assume he stays in the starting lineup tonight, even with Williams back. Williams been coming off the bench anyway, but then you also take Huerter out. So there's 2 spots there. My guess is that you would get Goodwin and then Solomon Hill probably sliding into the starting lineup. But if Goodwin's out and Huerter is out and Bogdanović is out, then it just becomes a mess because you have Chris Dunn back, but Chris Dunn only played about 13 minutes last game. It's hard to think he's playing enough minutes to really be relevant here. You would probably get Skylar Mays as, a normal rotation piece, but who really knows like how much he plays? The thing is, we were talking before the show, if all those guys are out, who's handling the ball for this team? If it's not Dunn or Mays, unless it's Williams. And so you're probably getting around 30 minutes for Lou Williams. Still a tough spot against Philly, but it's, we're not talking about a Detroit or an Orlando where Atlanta doesn't have anything to play for and they're not trying to win games. I think it's more likely that they're going to turn to Lou Williams to provide scoring than that they're going to just like throw Skylar Mays in for 36 minutes or something like that. So if everyone's out, I think Lou Williams probably picks up like his biggest game as a Hawk.
Yeah, I think it's very possible. Dan L, welcome to Team Awesemo, brother. Glad to have you. Corey says with the super chat, new to Awesemo, another LFG. If I knew Russ Wilson and Bertans were host, I would have subbed sooner. Who's your favorite pair today? First of all, stop insulting me. Jordan, when you get a chance, side by side, Davis Bertans and myself.
I really hope that person did not know that that's like an ongoing joke.
If he didn't, he had. Have you caught the Russell Wilson comparison before, Rimpak? Is that like an ongoing joke here?
I've gotten that here and there, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to bed sleeping next to Ciara, unfortunately, but that'd be a different story.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were saying you wouldn't.
Oh, I would. Okay.
I was gonna say we might have to divert the conversation from, but no way. I'm a far better looking version of Davis Bertans, if anything. except he just has a lot more money than I do in talent.
Height.
Let me go to you, Rimpack, for Atlanta. I think Adam did a pretty succinct job of breaking this all down, but right now it feels like this is the biggest spot on the slate that we have to be paying attention to. Rimpack.
Yeah, so I think Lou Will picks up extra ball handling duty for sure if all those guys are out, and I'm gonna target the upside with him. Skylar Mays becomes like an unknown type of play. Like we haven't seen him play much this year. I know he played 4 years at LSU. I do expect him to get some ball handling duty, but at that price tag and with the ownerships that we talked about, some of those Cleveland guys, he makes for a great pivot over there on FanDuel at $3,500. If we're dealt with the situation, if Bogdanovich and Goodwin are out, Goodwin was wheeled off in a wheelchair. So I really don't think he ends up playing. I'll be shocked if Goodwin ends up playing. So, but now going to other guys who can pick up an upside with if all these guys are in, I still think I will take my chances with Bogdanovich just because of that shot volume has been so great without Trae Young there. And I do think he's going to be a full go.
No, go ahead. Your internet cut out for a second. I thought we were having Adam problems over there.
No. Am I good to go now? I believe so.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Yeah, I just said if Bogdanovich were in, I'll still have some interest taking some chances on him.
3, 2, 1. That is a great pause, though. Yeah, you're cutting in and out. If you want to jump out and jump back in, Rimpack, that might be a viable solution here. Or let me go to Adam and see if we clear up. Do you like anything well, actually, do you want to hit on anything else from Atlanta, Adam, since there's a lot going on here that we haven't hit on?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what Rimpack was saying too. Like with all these guys questionable, if let's say Goodwin is out, Herter's out, and Bogdanovich plays, you're just looking at even more solidified minutes for Bogdanovich, probably still increased run for Lou Williams. But Bogdanovich has averaged over a fantasy point per minute without Young on the floor this year. He's been playing really well recently. You know, again, it's a tough matchup. It's not the most appealing price tag, but you know the minutes will probably be there. If Goodwin starts and plays, he's a reasonable value. Skylar Mays, for in limited playing time this year, has averaged 0.87 DraftKings points per minute. So he is someone that if they're all out, you can certainly look to at minimum salary. It's just a team where, you know, there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think the most succinct way to put it is basically that, you know, the more guys that are out, the more valuable the starters are going to be.
All right. So Rimpack, on the Philly side of this game, everyone's pretty much healthy. Apparently Ben Simmons got caught out at Target with his girl. And then there's a great side action video that Kayla Knierim, who's on the Tip-Off Show, did about that. I watched it yesterday, that he went from out to questionable to in moments after being, you know, outed as someone that might not be as sick as he said he was with this mystery illness, but I won't judge. Do you like anything from the Sixers today as 8.5-point favorites?
Yeah. Anytime Embiid's on the slate, just because the guy has the upside of being the highest scoring player, you're going to have some sort of interest in him. And I'll be going to taking some chances on Embiid in tournaments for sure. And I don't think it's going to take much to get over the field with our projected ownership right now. So I don't mind taking your chances on Embiid. Has some serious upside. And I just think Ben Simmons, his price tag is cheap enough where in tournaments, I'm willing to go over the field just because he has an upside within him. He's been really bad since the All-Star break in terms of fantasy wise, but I've been chasing that upside game for a long, long time. And I'm just hoping that it's going to pan out one of these days.
It might. It also might not, Adam. And that's what you get with Ben Simmons, a guy who would rather be shopping around the Target than playing basketball, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much Embiid here for the reasons Rimpack said. You know, I meant when I wrote the deep dive this morning, there was like a 5-to-1 ownership gap on DraftKings between Jokic and Embiid. Now it looks like it's about 4.5 or 4-to-1. But it's the kind of thing, you know, we say it a lot when Embiid plays on these slates with Jokic. With Jokic, I think Jokic is the better play. He projects higher. He's likely to outscore Embiid. They're similarly priced, but that's not, it's not a secret. Everybody's well aware of that. And Embiid does still give you the upside to be the highest scorer on the slate. So it's not, that you have to play Embiid over Jokic, like you shouldn't, it's not like you shouldn't be playing tournaments if you're not playing Embiid over Jokic, but that's a spot where you can take a stand and play more Embiid than the field. So I like that. Simmons, I'm kind of on the opposite side. I almost never play Simmons. And so he can continue playing poorly for as long as he wants. Tobias Harris, kind of a secondary option here as well. But I think Embiid's the guy that I'm the most likely to get to.
A. Dean with a super chat says, will one of y'all please look up Drinko with Rico on TikTok? It is literally Laffy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't look like a Rico, but
I don't have TikTok.
What's that?
I don't have TikTok. I'm guessing you don't either.
I don't have TikTok now. China owned TikTok, of course. No. We had that for that super chat earlier. Corey asked who's the favorite pay up option on the slate. I will hit on that because I want to get to it later once you go through everything, but I'll forget. So Rimpak, who's your favorite pay up for the slate?
It's tough not to love Jokic in this spot where he's just continuing to crush. It's got to be Jokic in my opinion.
What about you, Adam?
Jokic.
Okay, let's move on here so we can pick up the pace. I think there are a few games that we're just not going to have much to say about at all, but we'll go to Charlotte. And Rimpak, I'll kick it off with you. LaMelo's still out. Hayward has no real timetable for any return. Malik Monk's been out for like a month now. So we know what we're getting here. Most of the prices on this Hornets team have adjusted for all of these injuries pretty significantly by now. But you're still getting some strong games from Rozier, Bridges, PJ Washington starting at the 5 has done well. And Borrego's been running an 8-man rotation. So with such a condensed rotation, does that open the door to some value for us or to at least some good plays tonight?
Yeah, with a condensed rotation like that, you're going to have some interest in some of these guys. And I immediately have been going to Terry Rozier. He's been playing pretty well in terms of basketball-wise. He's improved this year. His shooting efficiency has gone up. And he's just taking a ton of shot attempts. At that price tag, when someone's taking that many shot attempts, 18, 19 shot attempts, he can really pay off that price tag. And against Boston, he played them 2 games ago. He went 8 of 18, put up 47.5 fantasy points. Not saying that's going to happen again. Boston's he's played well against him. So, I mean, especially on FanDuel, where we have to roster 2 point guards, I'll have interest in Rozier. Miles Bridges has been really, really good of late. I don't think this is that sustainable. His shooting efficiency has been through the roof, thanks to some sensational dunks. But it's really Rozier for me as my option on Charlotte, and that's really about it. I just feel like there are better plays that I feel a lot more confident in the later games.
Adam, what about you in Charlotte?
Similar boat. Rozier, I think he has small forward eligibility on DraftKings now, which is strange, but it makes it easier to get him into some lineups. He's averaged around 36 minutes per game without LaMelo and without Hayward, a little over a fantasy point per minute. Devontae Graham also a little over a fantasy point per minute, averaging about 30 minutes per game in the games without Ball and Hayward. But with the condensed rotation, you saw almost 34 minutes last night. Maybe you see a couple more minutes tonight. He's only 5,700 on FanDuel, 6,100 on DraftKings. I think that's a decent option. And then Brad Wanamaker's 3K on DraftKings, which I don't trust him, but he played like 22 to 24 minutes 2 games ago. He played 27 minutes last night. I think if you're going to get 24 minutes from Wanamaker, he's about a 0.86 DraftKings points per minute guy since joining Charlotte. It is a 3K guy if better value doesn't open up that you can roll the dice on. Just be aware that there is risk there because for one, you're only expecting around 24 minutes, and for two, there's no guarantee James Borrego runs an 8-man rotation again.
All right. I want to talk about Boston, Adam. When we look at the Celtics yesterday, they had no Tatum, no Kemba, no Robert Williams. They get Williams and a Tatum back today. So you have some reinforcements outside of Kemba, who's still sidelined. Do you like anyone from Boston against Charlotte? And how much are these other guys influenced or affected by Robert Williams being back in the rotation for the first time in over 2 weeks almost? Yeah, over 2 weeks.
So, I mean, I still like Tatum and Brown because Kemba's out, and we've still seen them benefit this year. The thing is just they're not as underpriced as they were yesterday. Tatum in particular is pretty expensive. But Jaylen Brown, I think, because small forward's not a very strong position, he's averaged about 1.2 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played without Kemba and with Tatum this year. Usage rate up over 30%, assist percentage up around 20%. I still think that it's a pretty good spot to get to Jaylen Brown. Tatum, if you get there, I think is a good option as well, about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. It's just a little bit more difficult at his price tag. And then, Robert Williams coming back. Don't know how many minutes he's going to play, but if you get around 24 at 5,600, he at least has the ability to put up a monster game based on blocks and rebounding numbers. The problem here is just that Charlotte's not the most appealing matchup. They're one of the slowest teams in the league. They're not a terrible defensive team either. So whereas in a lot of matchups, I think under these conditions, you'd be looking heavily at the Boston guys. I think for the most part, they kind of look more like secondary options to me here.
Rimpak, are you on the same page or did you dissent a little bit here?
Yeah, I'm a little less interested in Jaylen Brown. Just I feel like just because of recency bias, his ownership might be a little bit increased. And I'd rather take my chances on Tatum, who's being back in the rotation. And on FanDuel, where we have to roster 2 power forwards, it makes a lot more sense to go there. And Marcus Smart is obviously always play in tournaments just because he has an upside of just getting hot from outside and finds a way to get other stats like rebounds and steals. So for me, in terms of Boston, I like Tatum and Smart, then followed by Brown.
I love what you did with the TV back there, Rimpak. What is that, a 90-inch?
No, it's 120.
Oh, my apologies. You know, 20 back there with the with the deeper dive stuff up. I like it. It's a good look.
Got to rep the brand, right?
Yeah, it looks good. It's a good idea, man. Do you guys have anything else to add from Charlotte or Boston? Adam, I'll go to you.
No.
All right, then let's talk about the Lakers. I want to start, Adam. I want to get both of your guys' opinion on this one because I think it's important. Josh and I talked about it this morning on the strategy show. Check it out Monday through Sunday, every single day of the week, 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's a fun ride. You get some information along the way as well. Anthony Davis played 31 minutes last game. So since his return, he's gone 17, 28, 31. Expectations are we don't really see him limited today if this game stays close. 1.5 point spread. Washington Wizards, I know you're saying they play better defense lately. I will give you that. But at the same time, not a scary team, fastest paced team in the league. Without LeBron James still, is Anthony Davis a worthwhile option given his salary and his overall lack of ownership?
I really, really, really like Davis if that ownership stays low.
He's at 1% right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have trouble believing that's the case. But even if it stays in like the single digits, I really like Davis here. I mean, it's a fast-paced Washington team. Yeah, they're playing better defensively lately, but that doesn't concern me, especially when you talk about somebody like Anthony Davis, who they just don't have an answer for. We saw Davis play 31.5 minutes last game. He could easily pick up a couple more minutes here. He hasn't been great without LeBron on the floor this year, but it's one of those spots where, like, logically it says he should be a lot better. And if you go back to last season, he's averaged 1.48 DraftKings points per minute since the start of last season without James on the floor. At 9,200 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel, if you're expecting 32 minutes with the potential to maybe get a couple of more, and you're not getting ownership here, I think there's a really high ceiling for Anthony Davis.
Same question to you, Rimpak. Anthony Davis at his current price point and super suppressed ownership.
Oh, I'm like generally always above the field on Anthony Davis. I'll be doing it again tonight. Tough not to take your chances on that price tag on both sides, honestly. And even if he was going to play 30 minutes, Davis has 50-point upside. And like Davis, for a part of his career, he was known as one of the best fantasy players out there. And it hasn't changed much. Obviously, the injuries have been there. And I like taking my chances on Davis at that super low ownership. And especially on FanDuel, where we have the roster too, you can mix and match with these studs. And taking your chances on a low-owned Anthony Davis, sign me up. I love going to Brow tonight.
Is there anybody else on this Lakers team that has injury designations everywhere, but Frank Vogel really just Bill Belichicking his way to lock? Is there anybody else that stands out? Because they're all likely to play.
I've been taking my chances on Andre Drummond as well. I know it's doesn't help when you're sharing the court with Anthony Davis, but there's a chance he's the one who can pick up a double-double and find his way to 45 fantasy points. There's only been about 2 games he's been good with the Lakers, but if this game were to stay close, I believe the spread is like 3 or 4 points, I believe, or it might have gotten
right
closer.
now. It's actually 1.5.
Yeah.
Lakers laying 1.5 on the road.
So it's gotten a little bit closer, and we know Anthony Davis doesn't like playing a lot of minutes at the 5. I like even taking some chances on Drummond at both sides, 7-4 and 6-9. Obviously, we know what the opportunity cost at center is with guys like Jokic and Embiid, but Drummond has the potential of putting up 45 plus fantasy points, and that's great at that price tag on a 10-game slate.
Adam, same to you. And also, do you worry at all about Drummond siphoning off a lot of boards and just defensive opportunities from Anthony Davis, or is that something that more so on the back burner than anything else?
I mean, it's possible, but you get production in so many different ways from Davis that I'm not overly concerned about that. Yeah. Like without LeBron out there, he'll still get some assist opportunities and he's still going to score a bunch.
And he'll rack up a good amount of stocks too.
Yeah. You know, would I rather he be playing center? Yes. But you know, I'm still fine with him alongside Drummond. I second what Rimpak said on Drummond. I wrote about him in the deep dive today, and it wasn't really a ringing endorsement. It was just like, you know, if you're going to get around 27, 28 minutes of Drummond at this price point, we just know how high his ceiling is. It was interesting to me to look and see the Wizards, despite having that reputation as a poor rebounding team, they're actually middle of the pack in total rebounds allowed, offensive rebounds allowed, and defensive rebounds allowed.
Well, that might have something to do with Russell Westbrook too. Huh?
Well, they're
everywhere.
Bottom 10 in offensive rebounding allowed, which I think does have to do with Westbrook.
For sure. Yeah.
But even like defensive rebounding, they're middle of the league, which is surprising given that they're not known as a good rebounding team and they play so fast. But either way, Drummond certainly can go off here. The guy beyond Davis, though, that I'm really interested in is Dennis Schroeder at 6,900 on DraftKings and 7K on FanDuel. He's been playing huge minutes. He's coming off a 37-minute game last time out. But he also, like, when you look at his numbers with Davis on the floor and without LeBron, you can see that he's really impacted a lot more by LeBron's absence than by whether or not he's playing with Davis. He's played 269 minutes with Davis on and LeBron off this year. He still has a 25% usage rate and a 33% assist percentage. He's averaged a fantasy point per minute. You're getting this pace-up spot against the Wizards. He's still fairly priced, playing big minutes. I still really like Schroeder here.
Okay. Jeremiah Johnson says, last game for Lakers, Laffy, Drummond Harrell split center minutes 25-23, and AD Moore split him power forward 31-17. Now, I'm not talking about him taking center minutes away from it. I'm talking about when they're on the floor together. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting what you're saying, but yeah, it's more so when they're on the floor together that is what concerns me. I'd much rather have Marc Gasol or Montrezl Harrell out there, but I'm with both of you guys. I think Davis just has way too much upside today at his projected ownership. Now, Rimpack, when we look at Russell Westbrook, guys averaging a triple-double on the year, 22, 11, and 11, 1.7 stocks per game average. And I think Adam mentioned it last week that he's third in rebounds over the last month, which is absurd for a point guard or anyone that isn't in the front court. Do we go back to him today with all of these top-tier options on the board?
Yeah, so going back to our super chat question, we got a favorite spend up. It was neck and neck between Jokic and Russ. It was a tough 1v1 if you're to go at it that way. But like I've said, Russ has the potential to be the highest scoring player on the slate, and you don't want to miss out on it. At least you want to be with the field at our ownership. It's just because he has that, and you don't want to get burned. But if you don't want to roster Russ, I recommend going to Beal, just because we know the concentrated usage on this Wizards team. It's them. It's 1A and 1B on more times than not. But Beal has the potential to take 20-plus shot attempts. He's taken 37, 24, and 24. And if you were to box score watch, the guy hasn't taken less than 20 shot attempts dating all the way back to April 12th. So you can just lock him in for 20 shot attempts. And I really like his ownership is really, really low. And I'm going to be well over the field on Beal today, just because trying to pivot off of some Westbrook ownership on a 10-game slate, that's one way to get different. And it's not the craziest take whatsoever. And other guys on the Wizards, I know we had the Gafford experience that did not work out well. I don't know what the minutes are going to look like in the front court versus Len and Gafford, but it's a great spot to take your chances on going back to Gafford, and maybe he's the guy who gets going. I know he played some overtime minutes. I forget if Len fouled out last time in a high-scoring game against San Antonio, but it's just a low, going back to the spot where everyone got burned type of situation with Dan Gafford. Yeah,
Len had the 4 fouls, but he had 2 in the first 2 minutes of that game. So I think he was in pretty consistent foul trouble. And then Gafford just destroyed everything when he got an opportunity to come in and make things work and didn't. Adam, your Washington Wizards, anything stick out to you today?
Westbrook. I'm right there too. I mean, it's neck and neck between him and Jokic as far as my favorite payoff options. You had the disappointing game from Westbrook 2 games ago, came right back, threw up another triple-double against the Spurs last game. It's a tough matchup here, no doubt about it. The Lakers have been one of the best defensive teams all year long. They don't play at a fast pace, but the rebounding from Westbrook, we talk about it all the time. It's just such a stable, it makes him so stable. Obviously he had that 5 rebound game a couple games ago, but other than that, he's getting double-digit rebounds every game. And so you don't need him to be an efficient scorer. He's not, but he's still going to get enough scoring. He's going to get enough assists, and he's third in the league in minutes played over the last month as well. So still really, really like Westbrook here. Gafford's fine in tournaments. I mean, it's kind of the same situation we've seen all year with Scott Brooks and his non-Thomas Bryant centers. The rotation is going to infuriate you. It's going to add a lot of volatility, but we know how high Gafford's ceiling is. He only played like 16 minutes or so last game, but within his last 4 or 5 games, you have a 26-minute game, you have a 24-minute game. Robin Lopez is probable tonight, so there's one more guy that he has to compete with. And I do think that for Andre Drummond's minutes, you could potentially see Robin Lopez play more since he is the biggest guy the Wizards have. But, for the Harrell minutes, or if Gasol's in the rotation, guys that aren't as physically imposing and don't matter as much, you could see Gafford get more run, especially if he's playing well. So, I think Gafford should just play more in general. Scott Brooks, of course, disagrees, but you at least know that potential is there. So it's fine in tournaments.
All right. I just went over to Basketball Reference, and I guess ad block didn't work because the sidebar had an ad for a John Wayne Gacy documentary. You familiar with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it that all serial killers go by 3 names?
Like Ted Bundy?
No, not all of them. I mean, not all of them, but let go through the list. I would say most of them. There is definitely an unusual amount of them that go by 3 names. Just a thought. I don't know.
If you go by 3 names, your chances of ending up a serial killer increase drastically.
I would honestly agree with that. Or is it like a post-mortem type thing? You know, they do this after the fact because
all the John Gacy's were like, no, we need that middle name in there.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Maybe that's what they do. All right. Anything else for this one, Rimpak?
Yeah, I think we should hop on over to the next one.
You sure you want to do that? Charlotte, New York, or Chicago, New York?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Skip the next one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We might be able to move on after this one pretty quickly, but let's just do it anyway. I think we can make quick work of this. The Bulls 4-point dogs, 207.5 total here. Zach LaVine remains in the health and safety protocols. And on the other side, the only news here is Alec Burks was out, or at least questionable. Now he's off the injury report. So Rimpak, I will give you free reign here. Hit on both sides of this game if you'd like. I don't think we need to spend the most time on it.
Yeah, so I think going back to Julius Randle in a much favorable matchup, going to Chicago compared to Phoenix, I think makes for a great option in terms of spending up. The guy's been good all year in terms of fantasy-wise. I think he's now the odds-on favorite for most improved player. So 10-3 is steep on DraftKings. On FanDuel, where we have the roster too, it makes it a lot more viable. And Vooch over there on FanDuel, honestly, is the other guy I'd consider from this game. I believe comes in at only $8,700. You're going to save a lot off of guys like Jokic and Embiid. I know on 10-game slate, you can do a lot with those extra $2,000-$3,000. And in super tournament darts, I don't think Daniel Theis's game was sustainable. What happened last time? I believe he put up 50. That's not going to happen. I'm completely fine removing him from my player pool in a matchup versus the Knicks. And if for some reason Nerlens Noel is going to play 30-plus minutes against Vooch, I'll take my chances at that cheap $4,400 price tag because Tibbs has that in him where he's like, okay, go play against Vooch for like the whole game because he'll do that with Nerlens Noel. It hasn't happened in a while, but that's really it about in this game for me. No one else stands out. I think everyone else is priced appropriately or priced too high.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. Julius Randle, I think, is pretty much the one guy on the Knicks that I don't anticipate really being hurt by Alec Burks coming back. I think it takes a couple of minutes away from Derrick Rose. I think it takes a couple of minutes away from RJ Barrett, enough to where I'm not overly interested in those guys. Although $5,400 Rose on DraftKings does still have a ceiling, but I think he's less likely to hit it with Burks back in the rotation. But Randle, again, it's a tough price point for him, but you have Jokic, you have Embiid, you have Westbrook at the top. Other than that, you don't have quite as many superstars as you normally would on a 10-game slate. We know Randle's going to get the minutes. He leads the league in minutes per game over the last month. We know he's going to produce. He's at about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, and it's not a bad matchup against Chicago. So Randle's fine if you get there. Noel, if you want to throw a dart, that's fine too. No arguments with that. On the Chicago side, I don't really have much of anything. I think Vooch is more favorably priced on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, but the opportunity cost is higher too because you can only roster one center there. So pretty unappealing spot for Chicago.
All right. MJazz22, I saw you up at the top. I think it was yesterday. He said, congrats on the $50 super chat, by the way. So thanks, brother. Congrats on the #1 DFS show spot, fellas. Paying it forward for all the Awesemo content. No chance I would have the success I've had without all this Awesemo content the team has put out for us. I can't thank you guys enough. Well, can't thank you enough, man. Thanks for hanging around and appreciate that super chat. Anything else from this game, guys? Either one of you?
Not for me.
No. All right. There we go. In sync head shakes to the left and right. San Antonio, Miami. I'll go back to you, Rimpak. Derek White's out. This game, I don't think, is all that much better than the one that we previously hit on. And we have 9 other games, well, really 8 if you remove Chicago and New York, that make for some really interesting spots. Do you have anything when it comes to the Spurs with Derek White being out that might open the door to some production?
Yeah, Derek White being out was devastating to 2 of my final best ball teams that had made it to the final round. But besides that being the point, it's tough. This Spurs team without Derek White, you can obviously expect more ball handling duty for DeJounte Murray, who was great last time against Washington. Put up 60-plus fantasy points. Now a tough matchup against Miami. Tough to have any interest. Honestly, my favorite Spur might be just DeMar DeRozan just because I feel confident in him taking 20-plus shot attempts. And that's really about it. People I think, might gravitate thinking Lonnie Walker is going to get a ton of extra minutes. I don't feel so great about it. It's fine in tournaments, but I don't have the greatest confidence. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice in this Spurs team just because of the matchup. I really don't see a reason to really go here because there's so many other great spots, and these Spurs seem priced too high, or pretty much kind of priced too high in my opinion, just for this matchup.
Adam, is there anyone in the deep dive that you posted today that stood out from the Spurs?
No, I mean, I mentioned Lonnie Walker just because of the price point. He's averaging 28 minutes per game in his starts this year, but he's only a 0.7 DraftKings points per minute guy. He's got a brutal matchup here against the Heat. The main selling point on Walker would be like if, for example, Gary Harris gets a bunch more ownership, you can go to Walker because they're kind of the same play. But again, not a ringing endorsement there by any stretch. He's just a cheap guy, probably playing around 28 minutes. I think that in tournaments, if you get to some DeRozan or some Murray, we know how good these guys can be. We know the type of production they can give you, but they're just priced, I think, where they should be on a slate where, especially when you talk about guards, there are some very clearly underpriced guys.
Rimpack, what are you drinking over there?
I'm drinking a Starbucks refresher, mango dragon fruit with lemonade.
That's something. It looks like something Jim Jones would have given you at his compound. All right. My fault. I didn't know you were drinking there. Do you like anything from Miami, Adam?
Not in particular. Jimmy Butler kind of, on FanDuel, I think going to be a better play than he is on DraftKings because of the rigid roster construction. You have to roster 2 small forwards. It makes Butler look a little bit better just because of the raw point projection. On DraftKings, we know he has a high ceiling, but there's just guys in that price range I like a little bit more, whether it's Jason Tatum or Julius Randle or, a handful of others. Bam Adebayo, sort of the same thing. The type of game he can give you, but he's priced up. This team right now, we're waiting on Kendrick Nunn and Goran Dragic news. Assuming those guys are in, there's nothing really that stands out to me.
All right, that's a perfect segue into the conversation that we have, Rinpack, in the event that they are out. So we've now seen Hero miss a handful of games in a row. If he sits and is joined on the sidelines by Kendrick Nunn, or Kendrick Nunn plays and Goran Dragic is and Tyler Hero is out, can we get to anybody in the backcourt for the Heat today?
Yeah, I think Goran Dragic at that 5K, 5.4 price tag, just because of the ball handling duty he's going to get. He was fine. He only took 9 shot attempts last time, found his way to get 6 rebounds, 7 assists. So he got there for us at 5,400 and 5K. You really want him to find a way to get to 40 for real tournament winning upside. He has that within him. It's a fine option to take your chances on Dragic. Another guy to talk about was Bam. He played the same San Antonio team a week ago, and he put up 51 fantasy points in 31 minutes. It's we pretty much are a broken record at this point. The opportunity cost at center is quite a bit, but there's the upside of Bam in this matchup. The news is going to really change this Miami team in a hurry. Right now, the way things stand, if they're all going to play, tough to have any significant amount of interest outside of Butler on FanDuel, where we have to roster 2 small forwards.
Adam, anything else here from the backcourt in the event that these guys sit?
The only other thing I would add is that Gabe Vincent played 30 minutes with both of those guys out last game. The caveat is that it is Gabe Vincent, so he could play 48 minutes and still not be a particularly good play. But he's averaged 2/3 of a fantasy point per minute. He's 3K flat. If you get 30 minutes here, you can see how he can have success, but it would still just kind of be a similar type play to the Lonnie Walker, Gary Harris types that we've talked about.
All right. And yes, Jackie, you're 100% right. I was going to correct myself. It's the assassins that have 3 names, not, generally speaking, the serial killers, just so we can clear all of that up. Where do we go from here? We got 4 games left. What's that?
Duncan Robinson is questionable.
Ooh.
Should we hit on it?
I mean, it's just going to open up more minutes for guys if he's out. Like if all of Hero, Robinson, and Nunn are out, Vincent's minutes are more secure.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. This is actually a lot more important than that. Marcus Smart's out.
Peyton Pritchard?
That's what we're going to talk about right now. He's been suspended 1 game without pay for directing threatening language towards a game official. I could think of worse things to get suspended for.
Yeah.
Rinpack, what do you think this does for Marcus Smart's absence?
So, Peyton Pritchard, like Adam said, it's going to obviously open up 30 plus minutes in this rotation, and how Brad Stevens is going to sprinkle this out. I do think Pritchard's definitely a beneficiary out of that. Evan Fournier, I think, is now back in play by quite a bit. He picked up 5 stocks last game. I don't think that's going to keep up, but he's a guy who can get the 3-point bonus on DraftKings. Very favorable for him. I believe he's 4.9 and 5K on FanDuel, DraftKings, respectively, or it's vice versa. But he's a favorable price tag. I don't think his ownership will be that high. I do expect him to play 30 plus minutes now without Marcus Smart there. And it's going to be him and Pritchard are the 2 guys that I'm going to right now with that Smart news.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Fournier played 35 minutes last night, which is obviously a really good sign because it means that he's not limited but he played 20 and 22 minutes the 2 games before. So there were some concerns going into yesterday, but played 35 minutes. So he should be able to soak up 30 plus minutes again tonight without Smart. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy for the year, including his time with Orlando. Has struggled with Boston, and of course, is going to be behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the pecking order, but should get more minutes now at a pretty cheap price tag. So him and Pritchard, I think, are the two main beneficiaries.
All right, fair enough. 4 games to go here before we do that. Let's hit on the Hall of Fame. We had a 100K winner yesterday with the Awesemo avatar. You absolutely have to love it. If you want to get up here on the board, the Awesemo Hall of Fame, every single day we do this, and every single day we got new screenshots up there, new winners. If it's 100K, I might decide to leave it up for a couple days because it looks great. Download the Awesemo avatar at awesemo.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame. If you take top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, it can be a $20 entry, 50, it can be a 5-cent or 25-cent entry, doesn't matter. Top 3, 5,000 or more entries, you get a free month, everything included, of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's baseball, basketball, football, everything we have to offer if you get that. So you're winning money and you're getting a free month. It's a win-win just by rocking that Awesemo avatar. Be Great 36 with the 100K takedown yesterday. It's funny, he had 3 quarters left, and I was like, hey, can you send me a screenshot with 0 quarters left? That would be helpful because, things can happen. And it turns out, Rimpack, that he actually lost 3 points and still won.
Yeah, stat corrections can be brutal. And over your time of playing DFS, you'll be on the same amount of good times and bad times of stat corrections. But, congrats to him. Only 50 entries. And for those people who say you need a max enter, he pulled it off in just 50. So way to build up that bankroll. I know he's had a really good year on DraftKings as well. So kudos to him. And take advantage of that avatar. That's something that I did when I first started playing DFS, when you can't really afford these subscriptions. So definitely do that. And that's how I kind of built up my bankroll, having access to these sites back in the day. And definitely take advantage of that. That's the best way to get access to our data. And it's the best that's out there.
Sounds a bit hypocritical from a guy who still doesn't have the Awesemo avatar on Yahoo.
You got me there.
No, I'm just kidding. But for sure, man, I remember when you were first coming up, and I look at you now, rocking the Awesemo avatar, doing the deep dive and winning a ton of money all the time. Then you've got, what's up next, Jordan? Because we have a bunch of other things on here. Yeah, here it is. Jake Mirror, 10K, thanks to Awesemo. Won 100K 2 months ago. This time, rocking that Awesemo avatar. Love to see it. And then he also took down a qualifier, right? Yeah, free trip to Miami, here I come. So that's incredible. There were awesome avatars all over the top yesterday, and it makes me happy. Masbury 15, 750, third place in the 20K pick and roll. Jordan, anything else here? One more. There it is. Yep. And this is the NASCAR one. Playing for a month using the Awesemo tools. Boom. 30K first place, 5K second, third place. Left and right. Gotta love it. Use the Awesemo avatar. Let us brag for you. And if you want to get access to the tools, I won't make a long spiel of this because we still got 4 games to go. Go to awesemo.com/join. We got an express pass for less than $4 a week. You want to go monthly, you want to go annual, one sport, all sport, doesn't matter. The best tools you're going to find out there, no doubt about it. From the ownership to player projections to the Boom Bust tool, the lineup builder, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, all of our premium articles, and the Slack chat where you can get access to all of our pros answering questions in office hours to help you improve your game. If you have any questions about a sub, you can hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are open. All right, Portland and Memphis. Adam, let's break it down. The Portland Trailblazers crushed me yesterday because I love Brogdon. He got off to a killer start. Nurkic got off to a fantastic start as well. And Lillard was at least pacing what could have been a decent game. Monster blowout, not as bad as Golden State. But here we are in the second of a back-to-back, traveling to Memphis, 240 total, 1.5 point spread. Do we go back to Nurkic? Do we go back to Lillard? Hope this game stays competitive.
Yeah, because I don't think any of them really look like priorities tonight, which means that the ownership will be driven down a bit. Like, for example, we only have about 9% ownership projected for Lillard on DraftKings. He's cheap enough where, his average production is typically going to be okay at that salary. And we know the upside that he gives you, even though, obviously he hits the ceiling less frequently when he's playing with McCollum and Nurkic, but he can still go out there and put up those monster games. He's really, really cheap again on FanDuel at 8,100. You could potentially see Dylan Brooks, defending Damian Lillard a lot, which could open things up for CJ McCollum. But, either way, it's a fast-paced Memphis team, and we know the scoring upside that both of those guys give you. Nurkic still a lot cheaper on DraftKings than FanDuel. Didn't need to play his 29 minutes yesterday, but I assume he'll get back to 29 to 30 minutes tonight. 1.25 DraftKings points per minute for Nurkic this year, I think still makes him a pretty strong option on DraftKings.
Okay. How about you, Impact? Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, it's ultimately buying low on Damian Lillard. This is the cheapest he's been, I think, since 2018. I was looking that up. He's fallen quite a bit in terms of salary over there on FanDuel. $8,100 where we have to roster too. I'm going to take my chances on hopefully he pays off that price tag. I'll take my chances there. I know McCollum's still completely viable over there on FanDuel. We're with the roster too, but everyone else seems kind of priced appropriately. I guess Covington deserves a shout out just because he's one of those guys who can get there with stocks. I see that he pulled it off last night, so maybe he has some increased ownership after a successful game. But over there in DraftKings, it's really tough to have any interest here just because the way everything's priced. We know Lillard has a huge upside in him, so just taking your chances there on DK makes sense for me.
Okay. Adam, back to you for a moment here. The Memphis Grizzlies run a deep rotation, and it's tough to really feel great about anyone just given how everyone's healthy and everyone seemingly gets into the rotation each night. It is a decent enough spot against Portland, a bad defense. They don't play at a super fast pace, but the game has the highest total on the slate at 240. Can we get to some lower owned spots for the Grizzlies today? Because if you look at ownership here, just pulling up DraftKings, Melton's at like 11%. That is the highest projected owned player for the entire Grizzlies team. And on FanDuel, you have 5.8% John Moran as your highest owned Grizzly.
Yeah, I mean, they're just extremely expensive on DraftKings. And so, you can pay up to be contrarian, but $7,900 for Valanciunas is a pretty steep price tag. $8,200 for Morant's a pretty steep price tag. So it's, more so just tournament contrarian options. I do think the Anthony Melton's kind of interesting. The playing time is really volatile because Memphis, for whatever reason, doesn't play him as many minutes as they probably should. He's coming off of a game where he played about 24 minutes last time out, but he did benefit from Dillon Brooks picking up 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes of the game, got him some extended first half run. So the playing time, is still really volatile. Like he can play anywhere from like 18 to 26 minutes, but he's a good fantasy producer who averages over a fantasy point per minute this year. You kind of just need like one thing to go right for him, whether, it's Brooks or Grayson Allen or Kyle Anderson or just somebody to get in foul trouble, somebody to play poorly, and Melton to get a couple of extra minutes. So I think he is kind of an interesting value option just because we talked about it like with Gary Harris getting the minutes and Lonnie Walker getting the minutes, but those being guys that are very unlikely to produce at a rate that really win you a tournament. DeAnthony Melton's kind of the opposite. Like the minutes may or may not be there, but he's probably going to be productive in whatever time he is on the floor.
After we close this game out, I'll get to some, relatively important Atlanta Hawks news, at least something we can hit on. But Rinpack, close us out with the Grizzlies. Do you share the same sentiment as Adam, or can we get to more Memphis than it looks like the field will be getting to today?
I think we can because of the matchup they're in against Portland. I like taking some chances on Valanciunas at that price tag. Valanciunas has been playing more minutes this year in games that are close. It doesn't help that Jaren Jackson's around because he could get some minutes. And I'm going to give Jaren Jackson some attention over there on FanDuel. It's not the craziest thing to play him at $6,200. He's going to be really, really owned, really low owned. And he played Portland the other day. He shot very effectively. Once he's on the court, he's taking a bunch of shots. So I like that. He just needs to stay out of foul trouble, which he hasn't done in those limited minutes. He's gotten 5 fouls, 4 fouls, and 5 fouls in just 21, 25, and 18 minutes played. So if he finds a way to 25 minutes, he could put up 40 fantasy points. It'll be a super like a high efficient fantasy game, but on a 10-game slate, I'm looking to take some chances on players like that.
Okay. Adam, Brandon Goodwin and Bogdan Bogdanovic are both game time decisions. And we got word now that Chris Dunn will see extended minutes today. I don't know if that means that these guys are actually, or one of them is going to be out. So it's kind of a preemptive, he'll get more minutes. Or if it's just, he'll get more minutes and he'll play 4 more minutes than he did last game and get his way up to 17.
Yeah, I mean, to me, increased minutes just means he's going to play more than 13 minutes. Like,
exactly.
It was surprising to me if they were like, oh, yeah, Chris Dunn's playing 30.
Yeah, same thing. Rinpack, I would assume you're on the same page as us with that, right?
Yeah. Those two guys still being game time decisions will change a lot in the matter of minutes. Hopefully we get that starting lineup at least before lock would be nice.
That is why you got to stick around for Live Before Lock. Josh Engelman, Greg Ehrenberg, Nerd asked Greg, that's 3 names. Should we be worried about him? That's coming up right after us, 6 o'clock Eastern time, NBA Live Before Lock. So don't miss that. A lot of news that could break between the hour of the start of Live Before Lock and 7 p.m. lock. So we'll see you there. Stay right on the stream. You don't have to go anywhere. Adam, when we look at the New Orleans Pelicans here, they're 4-point dogs against Denver in Denver. 230.5 totals, kind of nice though. And I think the Steven Adams news is at least somewhat viable or important because Willy Hernangomez has proven that when he gets opportunities, when he gets minutes, he can very much produce, right? He's a clear +1 fantasy point per minute guy this season. As a matter of fact, on DraftKings, you're getting 1.14 fantasy, 1.13 DraftKings points per minute from him on the season. If Adams is out and he starts again, Hernangomez starts again, is he a solid value option for you against the Jokic-led Nuggets?
Yeah, I mean, he'd have his hands full defensively, but if he does start again and can stay out of foul trouble, you're assuming he's going to play upper 20s at least in minutes again. And like you said, he's a fantasy point per minute guy at a cheap price tag. So probably won't have that news by lock, but it is one reason, like Rinpack was saying at the beginning of the show when we talked about some of these value guys, that there is value in just or merit in kind of just ignoring them and figuring that you'll be able to find better options later. Hernangomez is certainly one of the potential options that could open up.
Rinpack, talk to me about this front court if Adams sits.
Yeah, this front court, if Adams sits, obviously immediately eyes go to Hernangomez. I mean, he's a fantasy producer once he's out there. And what Stan Van Gundy is going to do with him, I'm not sure. Stan Van Gundy with his backups are always tough to target. And if for some reason they go to Jackson Hayes starting, I'll have interest there. And really, we'll only have interest in the front court guys if we get Adams out and we can go to one of those backup bigs. But I think Zion Williamson still under 10K on FanDuel. I like him quite a bit. He's 10-2 over there on DraftKings. Tough to go there, but he's pretty much matchup proof. We can hopefully find him to play upper 30s minutes and just continue to take 20+ shot attempts and get to the line. That's the way he's going to have to pay it off. And I like taking my chances on Zion up top. And we need to look at Lonzo Ball's minutes. He's gone from 34 and 38 minutes after a stretch of playing below 30 minutes. And now he's playing north of, mid 30s minutes. I'm going to have interest in Lonzo at both price tags. And I think his ownership is going to be a little bit too low for that upside he has within him.
Adam, the rest of New Orleans has been kind of tough to get to lately, just based on their salaries and the fact that there's so many other high-priced guys on these big slates. Zion, Ingram, Lonzo Ball, anybody look decent to you at all?
I think Zion and Ball both look fine. Like Rinpack was saying, we've seen Lonzo's playing time increase, and we know going back to before his injury, they were playing him a lot of minutes. So it seems like he's back to being a pretty safe option as far as getting a lot of playing time. Not the most appealing matchup in Denver, but not a terrible spot either. And then Zion, if you can get there, great. It's just really, really difficult at that price point. He is more favorably priced on FanDuel, like Rinpack said. On DraftKings, he's more expensive than Davis. He's more expensive than Tatum. He's like the same price as Randall, which makes it tough because even though Zion is playing more minutes and he is producing at a high rate, the playing time you're getting even more from Randall and similar production. So Zion, I feel pretty similarly as I do about Randall. Like if he ends up in my lineups, I'm going to be fine with it. I think he's a good play. He just doesn't really stand out to me like some other guys on this slate do.
If we get the 500 likes in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to go in the back end and make the NBA ownership projections free today. I'm going to make MLB player projections free, PGA Pro plays, NHL ownership plays, all of them free. No, they're already free, but 500 likes would be great. Seriously, check out all that content. That's premium content that we put in front of paywall each day. For those of you that might not be premium subs or subs at all, you want to check out the site and get a glimpse of what we've got going on as far as premium content goes. Rinpack, outside of the front court, Zion, Ingram, Lonzo, same question to you. Anything you like here?
No, I think it's for me, it's going to be Zion and Lonzo on the Pelican side of things. And Brandon Ingram is going to be in play on FanDuel because we have to roster 2 small forwards there out of necessity. But that's really about it on the Pelican side.
Okay. I'll stick with you on the other side of this one. Denver, you mentioned earlier in the show that Nikola Jokic is your guy today. Adam said the same thing. I mean, it's a pretty solid matchup. The total's north of 230 here. Should be relatively close game. Is Jokic the guy that you assume you'll have the most of right now, at least from the highest tier of players? Yeah, and a 10-game slate, he's going to come in. You can say a little bit low on for the upside he has within him, and the matchup versus the Pelicans and potentially Hernangomez trying to guard him.
it wouldn't shock me if he puts up another mid-70 fantasy point performance. You'll take that, obviously. But Jokic has been great, pretty much a lock for MVP at this point. 11-1 over there on FanDuel and 11K on DraftKings, definitely in play. But if you don't want to roster Jokic, going to Michael Porter Jr. has been balling. The guy has been absolutely sensational the last 3 games and pretty much picked up the offense for the Nuggets without Jamal Murray. I've been rostering Michael Porter Jr. quite a bit over there on FanDuel. I'll be doing it yet again at 7-7, $8,600. He's not out of play. He's going to be pretty low owned, and we've seen that upside of late. He's gotten 47, 59, and 43 DraftKings points in his last 3 games. Porter Jr. against this Pelicans matchup, where the Pelicans have been known to give up a lot of threes all year long. So that's really my interest if you don't want to go to Jokic. And I'm really curious what Adam thinks about Aaron Gordon. He's kind of sucked pretty much in his Denver run so far.
Yeah, he has. It's tough with Gordon because, I've said it a lot. Like, he's been bad from a fantasy standpoint on Denver. And I think a lot of that will continue because they don't really need him to do a whole lot since they have Porter, since they have Jokic, and they had Murray. But he's still someone that's kind of interesting to me in tournaments because we know how talented he is and we know what he can do. Like, I would just think between now and the end of the season, there's just going to be spike games basically where something happens and Gordon does a lot better in terms of assists or needs to score a lot more or something like that. So he is kind of interesting to me just because, sometimes, or a lot of guys in this like 5K range, they're like the 3rd or 4th option on their team because they're not very good. Gordon, when he's the 1 or the 2 option on his team, he produces at a high fantasy rate. So kind of appealing to me there. I think just a little bit more volatile than a lot of players in his similar price range. But obviously the guys that you're really keying in on are Nikola Jokic at the top, 1.75 DraftKings points per minute in his games without Murray. You mentioned it, if Adams is out and you're getting a Hernan-Gomez led front court, it becomes even better for Jokic. Not concerned about Adams regardless, but it gets even better. And then Michael Porter, really expensive on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, you have to roster 2 small forwards. He's $900 less expensive. So I think Jokic and Porter are the 2 top guys. You can look to Campazzo as value. He's playing 30 plus minutes now without Barton or Morris or Murray. Austin Rivers at 3,900 played another 28 minutes last game. Certainly not somebody you're going to feel comfortable in, but you also shouldn't feel comfortable with guys like Lonnie Walker or Gary Harris or, some of that other value. So I don't think Rivers is really any worse than those guys.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do prefer this Denver side of value, guys like PJ Dozier, trying to find that salary to pay up for these guys than those Cleveland guys we talked about. And I still like Dozier quite a bit just because he's taking double-digit shot attempts in a pretty favorable Pelicans matchup today.
I hustle for it. Man, a few words, but leaves a super chat for us. Thank you. I did see a question from him. How about Powell tonight? Adam, Powell went 0 for 6 in 20 minutes yesterday, had 2 fantasy points. I mean, just an egregiously bad game for a Portland team that blew the doors off the Pacers. Can you get to any Norman Powell tonight?
Nothing about him really stands out to me. I mean, sure, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you can. Like, he's reasonably priced, but I would be getting to Lillard, McCollum, and Nurkic, and probably Covington before him.
All right, Manny C, thanks, man. Appreciate the kind words. And Josh of Los Angeles says, you won the piggy bank last night. Appreciate you, fellas. I feel like every night someone wins the piggy bank and tells us about it.
Yeah, I feel the same way because I have no idea what that tournament is, but I've heard the name so many times.
Yeah, and they're always winning it. I think it's on FanDuel, right? Yeah, it's on FanDuel. All right, we got 2 games to go here. Utah, Sacramento, LA Clippers, and Phoenix. Let's kick it off, Rimpack, with the Utah Jazz against the Kings. This game got interesting because you already knew Mitchell was out. They're still 9-point favorites, 222.5 total. Mike Conley's also out. But on the other side, Harrison Barnes, who's been legitimately playing 40 minutes in regulation every night, is out. Marvin Bagley, doubtful. Don't expect him to return. And De'Aaron Fox is going to be out for at least another week. So you've got a lot of key players here that are going to be sidelined. Kicking it off with Utah, Jordan Clarkson, going to get the minutes. Hopefully we get the minutes today with both Mitchell and Conley out. But that ownership is really high for a guy like Clarkson. And Adam knows how I feel about him on most days. Joe Ingles, our boy Jingles, though, another spot getting a lot less ownership, similar price point, but could have a lot of ball handling responsibilities today. So I think Ingles is really interesting, just given the discrepancy in ownership between him and Clarkson. But I'll let you break down this backcourt, and then Adam, same thing to you, because this is a huge part of the slate.
Yeah, so I think clearly the general public is thinking that Clarkson's going to get more ball handling duty. I think it goes majority to Jingles, who's going to get a lot of the ball handling duty, and he makes for a great pivot off of Clarkson in a 10-game slate. His ownership is, you can check them out for free. It's almost half on both DraftKings. It's more than half. And then on FanDuel, it's like a more than a third. So it's a great pivot to go to Jingles. And Bogdanovic is not going to shoot as bad as he did last game out. 1 of 11. That's not going to happen. He's a much better shooter than that. It's a great Sacramento matchup. I think these guys are both great pivots off of Clarkson ownership. On a 10-game slate, it's easy to make some pivots off highly owned guys like this. And Clarkson at 6,900 on DraftKings, he has to put up more than 40, mid-40s fantasy points in tournaments to really have you content and potentially getting you there at that type of ownership, in my opinion. And Gobert deserves a lot of recognition as well. In a matchup versus Sacramento, he has put up 60 in this matchup earlier in the year. I don't mind Gobert as a center spot. I know the opportunity cost is quite a bit. It's going to make for a fun center slate on both sides, honestly. But for me, summing it down, Ingles and Bogdanovic make for great pivots off of Clarkson.
Okay. Clarkson has 7 games with 40-plus DraftKings points this season, Adam. And we know he does have a decent ceiling, but can you get the peripherals? And is Quinn Snyder actually going to give him legitimate big-time starter minutes like Jingles has seen in these situations before?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all legitimate questions. And, I think Clarkson's a good, like one of the best plays on the slate, just in terms of projection and all of that. But yeah, there are legitimate questions because, for one, like Rinpak said, I fully expect Ingles to be the primary facilitator of this offense. Clarkson and Ingles have played the most minutes on Utah without Mitchell or Conley on the floor this year. Clarkson's got a 21.2% assist percentage, which is good. It's a bump for Clarkson. But Ingles is at 29.9%. He's someone that I think you'll just see running the offense a little bit more. So I think both of these guys are really good plays, and you can play them together also. But Ingles, maybe going a little bit overlooked. Whereas Clarkson, everyone's fully aware of what he's likely to do tonight in a good matchup. 29.1% usage rate for him without those guys on the floor, 20.8% for Ingles. Bojan Bogdanovic sees his usage percentage jump to 24.6%. His assist percentage comes up a bit as well. Still scoring dependent, but there's worse things to be than scoring dependent against a team that can't defend like the Kings. Rudy Gobert, I agree, is in a really good spot tonight. The position's really strong, but this is a Kings team that doesn't rebound very well. They did get Rashawn Holmes back, which can make life a little bit more difficult in the paint. But Gobert is still cheap enough, and the chances of blowout are a little bit lower since they're missing Conley and missing Mitchell. I think that, all of Gobert, Clarkson, Ingles, Bogdanovic look like really, really good options tonight.
Yes, we did say Jingles, by the way. Come on. Everyone calls them Jingles, don't they, Rinpak?
Yeah, they do.
I thought so, at least. Do you have anything else you like from the Jazz?
No, this Jazz team is shaping up to be the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA this year.
All right, fair enough. What about you, Adam?
No, I mean, I'm not even going to bother talking about Royce O'Neal.
Because we only got 5 minutes left. I think we're fine because I don't imagine Clippers Phoenix is going to take all that long. But Sacramento, Harrison Barnes, I haven't looked in like a week, but I would be shocked if he doesn't lead the league in minutes over the last month, right? Like
second to Randall.
He's still second to Randall?
Yeah.
No,
sorry, he's third to Randall and Westbrook.
What? Dude, he's playing 40 minutes a game.
36.9 minutes over the last month. Westbrook's at 37.6. Randall's at 38.8.
That's absurd. Okay, but he's up there, right?
Yeah, he's third.
So my point doesn't fall apart completely. You're taking between De'Aaron Fox, who's already been out of the lineup, and between Harrison Barnes. Dude, you're taking almost 80 minutes, like 80 potential minutes out of the starting lineup. How does that affect us today? I know a lot of prices have corrected for De'Aaron Fox's absence, but with Harrison Barnes being out, does Mo Harkless play 35 minutes tonight?
Yeah, to me, this is a really tricky spot because you're taking a ton of minutes out, like you said. You're taking some usage out. I mean, Barnes isn't a really high usage guy, but he's around 20% without Fox on the floor. The two huge concerns I have are, one, they're playing Utah, and two, Luke Walton is the coach. So I think it's really, really risky. Like, obviously, those minutes have to go somewhere. I assume Halliburton's playing around 36 minutes. I assume Hield's playing around 36 minutes. I would guess you're getting around 36 minutes from Mo Harkless, who, he is cheap. He's also not the most productive player, but 34 to 36 minutes at 3,800 is fine. Where I really get concerned is Terrence Davis right now is projected for the third most ownership on DraftKings. He's 3,300 with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, and he certainly could pick up a nice chunk of minutes without Harrison Barnes. So I get why he's a good play at that salary, but I also think the floor is just incredibly low. Like, Delon Wright could play more minutes. Kyle Guy could play more minutes. Metu could get minutes, alongside Damian Jones. Justin James could enter the rotation and play, bigger minutes. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that you're getting like 26 to 28 minutes from Terrence Davis, even though that is something that could happen. So I think he's a good point per dollar value just because he's almost definitely going to play more than 17 or 18 minutes, but 33% ownership going to Terrence Davis assuming he comes off the bench for a Luke Walton rotation. Like it scares me.
Yeah. Kyle Guy, one of the most generic names you'll ever hear in your life. Rinpack, what do you think about Sacramento today?
Yeah. Sacramento obviously missing Barnes a ton of minutes, and now Fox is obviously gone. We've seen the usage sprinkled around. With no Barnes, I'm expecting, Adam, you think Delon Wright enters the starting lineup?
I think it's either Wright or Davis, most likely.
Yeah, and I think immediately to say I'll have interest in the starter to have more minute certainty, I'd be lying because it's Luke Walton, but I'm going to be headed that way. I don't mind Terrence Davis just because even if there are ways where he can pay off that price tag.
We were doing so
it's
well.
Luke Walton, like Adams.
Go ahead. Your internet cut out again. You're good.
It's Luke Walton, by the way. So, but yeah, I think going to a guy like Halliburton, he'll just take my confidence there. And if Harkless plays 35 plus minutes, yeah, that salary's low enough where I'll be taking my chances with him.
Yeah, and to be clear on Davis, I'm not saying like not to play him. Like I'm sure he'll show up in some lineups for me. I don't have a problem with it. It's just like when I look at my teams that have Terrence Davis, knowing he's going to be popular and knowing what we know about the Sacramento team, I'm just not going to feel very good about it until the game's over and he actually has played 26 minutes or something.
Anything else for Sacramento, fellas? We got about a minute to go on Clippers Phoenix.
I think to his point too, like whoever starts, I'll feel a little bit better about their playing time. But again, like I expect it to be a hot hand situation here where if Wright plays well, he gets more minutes. If Davis plays well, he gets more minutes. If Guy plays well, he gets more minutes. But then you also throw in the caveat that do the Kings really care about winning games? So it's tough, but I think that Davis is a good point per dollar value. Just be aware of the ownership there for a spot that I think is very volatile.
Brian Goodwin is Brandon. God, I get that wrong every time. Goodwin is in. Bogdanovich is out. So there you have it. Do we go to Goodwin?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still a brutal matchup, but he's got to play a lot of minutes, right?
Watch Dunn plays 35 tonight and just scorched earth. Everything goes to shit. It's possible. All right, I'm going to do this because we are very much up against it. Rimpak, you first, then Adam. Just cut straight in when he's done. Clippers, Phoenix, hit on both sides. I don't think there's a ton. Go ahead, Rimpak.
Yeah, so Paul George burned everyone and their mom last time he played. I think going back to him with Kawhi Leonard one last time, I'd be doing that against the Suns matchup. And it's national TV Rondo versus Chris Paul. I love that narrative. I'll be over the field on Rondo. All
right, sounds good. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, with him for sure on Paul George. I mean, all the reasons we like Paul George last time apply here. It's not a great matchup against Phoenix, but, still averaging like 1.4 fantasy points per minute without Kawhi. So I think that's one spot where, he's not getting much ownership. You can definitely look to go there. From the Phoenix side, no issues with Booker or Paul. Their price tags have actually come down a little bit. DeAndre Ayton, fine as well. Jay Crowder is questionable. If he's out, then potentially you can look to, Bridges or Cameron Johnson. But for right now, I think no priorities from the Phoenix side, but I'd be looking mostly to Booker and Paul.
All right. Good stuff. Rimpak, fun having you on today, man. Good show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Adam, great stuff as always. Follow Rimpak at Rimpak on Twitter. Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Myself at Lafayette_D. Those white names underneath, that's where you can find us. And while you're at it, follow Awesemo_com and put yourself in the running to grab that free year of Awesemo Plus NFL. Just follow the instructions on the graphic. Predict the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. If it's right, you'll be entered for a chance to win a free year of Awesemo Plus. Great stuff. Why not do it? We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. Peace. All right, later, fellas.
See you guys.
And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Wednesday, April 28th. I had to look. I couldn't remember. It's been a long day. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by Odds Shopper, and we will touch on Odds Shopper in a little bit. But first, Greg, how does it feel to get news at the moment our show starts for like the 800th straight show?
Normal, right? Like, isn't it like it would feel out of place if we didn't get news. So, I mean, I assume the mics were hot before, so people were able to hear us going back and forth a little bit. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now is who's going to actually play minutes for the Hawks. Obviously, what's up in the air is how many minutes can Chris Dunn potentially play? Not that he's somebody who I'm going to be rostering myself, except it matters to how viable other guys are, like Brandon Goodwin and Lou Williams.
So let's talk through it right now. Guys, by the way, since Laffy left everyone under 500 likes for this show, kudos to you. Fantastic hosting job there. 2,200 people, 480 likes. Can we please hit that thumbs up, rub it in his face a little bit, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. You guys have had no problem being 52,100 plus subscribers since the moment that I started at Awesemo. That's enough subscribers to make us the #1 DFS channel in the industry. So, you know, I figure if I ask for likes, they'll probably go up too. Everything else has worked so far.
Good logic. I like it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's walk through this Atlanta team a little bit because they're pretty heavy on centers and pretty light on guards. And I honestly think that we kind of need to take this piece by piece. So Brandon Goodwin was questionable up until, 10 minutes ago. Now he is in. Do you think that his injury has any limitations to his playing time today?
So, I mean, potentially, but here's the other issue. Chris Dunn's going to be in the rotation. We already know that his injury is going to have limitations to his playing time. Lou Williams is coming off of flu-like symptoms. He was sick. That could potentially have limitations to his play time. So I don't know what to make of any of this right now. I've gave Brandon Goodwin 30 minutes. I think he's going to start for them. And I think he could potentially play more than that. I think he could potentially play less, but giving him 30 minutes is going to make him somebody that pops up for me. But not to the point where like I'm crazy exposed to him.
All right. So we are on the same page so far. I gave him 30 minutes. I gave Skylar Mays the 18 backup point guard minutes so far. That's where we're at. Okay. I also gave Lou Will 28 minutes. And that's one that I am just not comfortable with. I don't have a good feel for what they're going to play him. But 28 feels about right, although he can certainly play more. We've seen him play upwards of 30 minutes for this Atlanta team, at least at some point in time. How are you feeling for Lou Will?
So I gave Lou Williams 26 minutes, but that does give him a higher projection than I have for Brandon Goodwin.
Okay. I can't go too much more aggressively than 20 on Chris Dunn, given how long he was out, given how little he's played so far. I understand that they said that he could play increased minutes. Yeah, that makes sense. He played 13. I would be very surprised if that number runs north of 20.
So I gave him 18 minutes, but that makes him not a viable play at all. I mean, we haven't seen him very much this year, and it's not like he was a great points per minute fantasy producer in the past anyway.
It would surprise me a lot if John Collins played any minutes at the 5 today.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't change John Collins' minutes with Bogdanovich getting rolled out.
I think that I'm actually going to end up getting him slightly higher here. I think it's a lot easier to just assume that Clint Capella and let's just say Onyeka Okongwu split the center minutes. John Collins becomes a permanent permanent 4 here, maybe 31 minutes. Danilo Gallinari then becomes the big question mark. Does he see enough time to become a viable play today?
So another guy who's been dealing with injuries lately, as is like half of this Atlanta Hawks team, because everybody's either out. Here's what I think everybody on Atlanta is. Everybody is either hurt, coming back from injury, or about to be injured. And Danilo Gallinari is maybe all three of those at the same time. So Gallo in the last 3 games played 22 minutes, 21, and 24. Well, I think those minutes go up once again. I gave him 28 minutes. I think it's hard to think that he's going to be somebody who all of a sudden plays, like 32. I actually think Solomon Hill is going to play a healthy amount of minutes today, but he's such a crappy points per minute fantasy producer that I don't really give a care.
I gave Solomon Hill 36 minutes and I didn't really feel the need to mention him. So we're on the same page though. I gave Gallo 27. I gave John Collins 31. If I do have Onyeka Okongwu just taking the backup center minutes for Clint Capella, I have a full rotation of 9 guys for Atlanta that I don't think is much of a reach. And I don't really see me missing anybody other than I think it's possible that Nathan Knight could also get on the floor. The amount of minutes that I'm giving to Okongwu doesn't really matter. I just need to hope that Okongwu or that Nathan Knight doesn't take minutes from John Collins, which would be shocking to me.
I have Nathan Knight in the rotation, but only playing like a few minutes. Like it would be like one short rotation the first and second half where he gets a total of 6 minutes, but nothing substantial.
Okay. So then I think that we're on the same page here. And in the grand scheme of things, it's a tough matchup against Philly, and they're going to look bad. Brandon Goodwin, John Collins, Capella, Lou Will. That's probably it for me. Like, I don't get the sense that I'm even going to get to Gallo.
Well, I'm rerunning my lineups right now after finishing the Hawks guys, and it does not look like I'm going to get to Gallo. I do have exposure to Goodwin. I have exposure to Lou Williams, but also like when early in the day when I was thinking about the injury report for the Hawks, also Goodwin was questionable at the time. I assumed that if whatever happened there, like if Bogdan was in, maybe I'd get exposure. He was pretty expensive, but I was assuming at least one of Bogdan or Goodwin were going to be out. And then I thought I was going to be getting a whole bunch of exposure to the Hawks. That's not really the case for me right now.
Now, I think part of it is just simply this is a really difficult matchup. And I don't like the people that are going to pick up the most are already priced where they should be. Like, there's only so much benefit you can give to someone like Clint Capella, who still needs guards to get him the ball in the first place. I don't see him being like, even though he is probably the best player, or if you want to call it Collins, that's fine. They sort of need minutes, not like their role doesn't really change in these scenarios. It's not like Clint Capella is going to bring the ball up.
No, that and Capella is super expensive right now, and center's a really loaded position tonight. So that's something else that makes it really hard for me to get to Capella. I don't think he's in any of the lineups I'm running right now, at least not to this point.
Do we have anything else that you want to say for the Atlanta side of this game right now?
I think the only thing, well, let's see if we have updated ownership actually. If we have updated ownership, then that might, and by the way, ownership projections are free today on awesome.com. And we did just get a new run of ownership a minute ago. So awesome. I think this will be something interesting for us to look at right now and see where some of the ownership falls on these guys. So Goodwin now super popular or relatively popular for this slate, 18.6% projected ownership on DraftKings. I'm going to be below that number. Where's Lou Williams? Lou Williams at 11%. That's probably about where I'm going to have him. Let's see where like Capella, no ownership, which I think is reasonable. John Collins, no ownership. That's also about reasonable to me. That's for DraftKings. And then FanDuel, Goodwin is coming in at 9%. Lou Williams at no owner, or he's up to 5,400 on FanDuel. So a little different than he is on DraftKings, but 5,400 for Lou Williams at literally no ownership. That to me is an appealing play.
Yeah, because I think there is legitimate upside. Same starting lineup for the Hornets, by the way. Graham Rozier, Cody Martin, Bridges, and Washington. I think there's legitimate upside in Lou Will's minutes. I'm just not confident in it. If you told me that he went out there and played 36, my jaw's not going to be on the ground. Like that, sure, it could happen. I don't know what he's got left in the tank, but I think there's at least enough variance in him that you kind of want to get there, even if the price is problematic.
Yeah, and then also that was why I was curious about the ownership, right? Because to me, I was looking, it's like, hey, if these guys are going to be super, like if Lou Williams is going to be really popular with that much variance, then I wouldn't have interest in him. But I mean, literally right now, project for 0.1% ownership on DraftKings, a 0.1 on FanDuel, 11% on DraftKings. Those are reasonable numbers that make him appealing to me.
Do you have anything else for Atlanta?
I think that pretty much covers the gamut.
Okay. Does anything change for you with the Alex Caruso news? To me, that's just a wash. Doesn't matter at all.
I think I might end up giving Dennis Schroeder a couple extra minutes, which would actually make him somebody that pops up. He was somebody I was getting to a very small amount before, but a really favorable matchup against the Wizards. And now that might be somebody who I get to in a few more lineups.
I already had him at 35 minutes. So I basically just took the Caruso minutes, gave a little bit of a boost to Ben McLemore, and brought Wesley Matthews back into the rotation. And that sort of just hashed everything out pretty quickly. So to me, I don't think that Caruso being out is going to be changing all that much, but it is a piece of news that hit, 5 minutes ago or whatever. I'm trying to see making sure I don't miss anything here for Atlanta, but all of their active, they don't have any hidden 10-day type dudes or anything like that. Just wanted to make sure that we didn't have someone slipping through the cracks that was like a G League shooting guard that was getting ready to jack up 40 shots with everybody out.
Charlie Brown the fourth or something.
Yeah, something like that. All right, so I think we hit on everything. You know what? We should probably touch on this one too. This news came out a little bit earlier, but Marcus Smart suspended for today. Do you anticipate Peyton Pritchard being the guy that picks up the biggest benefit here?
Yeah, but I'm still not getting to him a ton. He's in my player pool, but I'm underweight to the field on him right now. I mean, we've seen him start a couple of times this year, and it didn't really go particularly well. I know there is maybe reason to think that should improve going forward, just because, he's a rookie. We expect he's going to improve as the year goes along. And then also the Celtics have, Kemba Walker out and Marcus Smart out. But I mean, the two starts that Peyton Pritchard has had this year, the issue has not just been the production is low. It's the reason that it's been low. There just hasn't been shots for him in the starting lineup playing alongside Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So it is only a sample size of 2 starts, but only 14.25 DraftKings points in those starts because his usage rate is only 10%. So it's somebody who I have in 5% of my lineups right now that's decently underweight to the field. I think there's better value plays on the slate, and just given what we've seen from him in the starting lineup, I don't think there's all that much upside.
I am in the same boat as you. So let's do this. Normally now I'd be transitioning to having a little bit of a conversation about guards, and I think that we should do that. But I'm going to lead you with a question. What are your thoughts on the ownership on Jordan Clarkson right now?
Let's see. What is the latest?
But I guess Clarkson? Particularly on FanDuel, where we have him projected for 48.8% ownership.
That's a high number. And on DraftKings, he's projected a little more reasonably, 33% ownership, but also his price is higher. I have Jordan Clarkson projected for an egregious amount of fantasy points today. I mean, it's a favorable matchup. Also, Utah all of a sudden needs to win games. Like, it was kind of assumed they had the 1 seed locked up for a really long time. That's not the case anymore. They are now without Mike Conley. They're without Donovan Mitchell. They're only 1 game up on the Phoenix Suns. I don't think they want to fall to the 2 seed, especially because there's potential right now that the 1 seed of the bracket is going to miss out on the Lakers, going to miss out on the Clippers. Like that might be a first round matchup that just the 1 seed gets to totally avoid. So, I mean, the 1 seed's pretty important. Jordan Clarkson might play like 38 minutes tonight, and he's going to have all the usage in the world. So I understand that he's super popular, but just the way I've projected, it's not really an issue for me.
Okay. What else are you looking at then for guards? Some of your favorite plays, and if you see anybody else that's picking up any ownership that you don't agree with, feel free to hit me with those.
So one second, we did get a super chat that I think we skipped for a second there. So I want to read that from Devin RJJ. He's asking Collins or Harris on FanDuel, and then we'll go back talking about the guards.
Collins.
Yes, Collins for me as well.
I like Tobias Harris, but there's just so much opportunity for John Collins right now, and there doesn't have to really be like Philly's at full strength.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, it's the same. Obviously, it's the same game, but I mean, the Sixers could really steamroll the Hawks, and then they just might not play their guys in the fourth quarter. I guess you could say the same thing for Collins also, if they're just getting their asses kicked. But there's so many guys out for Atlanta, and Philly's the opposite, where they're just getting everybody back. So I agree with you. John Collins is the choice for me. So, all right, let's get back into the other guards who I'm getting to right now.
I mean, I guess majorly, I'm interested in your thoughts. He is listed as part guard. What are you doing with Terrence Davis?
Terrence Davis is in.
Sorry, we just got news. I apologize for cutting you off. So Duncan Robinson is now or still questionable. Kendrick Nunn questionable. Tyler Hero is out. So we do have that piece of news. And I right now am projecting Duncan Robinson to be out since he's a late add to the injury report. That is just generally how I approach it. But now we definitely do not have Tyler Hero either.
I'm not even going to make changes for that quite yet, because with Duncan Robinson questionable and Kendrick Nunn questionable, it just feels like something I'm going to only adjust again later. I think that like Kendrick Nunn, obviously, if Hero's out, Duncan Robinson are out, like he would be a viable play. Goran Dragic is a really strong play if Nunn, Robinson, and Hero all end up being out. But it's still a lot of variables and hard to know exactly what to make of it. It's also a fairly early start time, so it won't be a hard one to pivot to. But my gut feeling right now is that all those guys are going to be out, and then I'm going to end up wanting to get to Goran Dragic a lot.
Oh, God. I don't know what's going to happen here. I really don't. Because it's going to open up something in a game where I wasn't planning on having basically anything other than Bam. So now that I've cut you off for like 3 straight times, let's go back to that guard conversation. Terrence Davis.
All right. So I have Terrence Davis in a pretty healthy amount of my lineups right now on DraftKings. He's also, I mean, he's so cheap at 3,300, and there's so much playing time to fill on Sacramento. I get that the matchup isn't great, but I mean, look at the injury report. We have Harrison Barnes is out, De'Aaron Fox is out, Bagley now downgraded to doubtful, but still Terrence Davis, he's somebody I've projected for over 20 fantasy points at really cheap, and I didn't even give him that many minutes. And I think that the minutes upside, like, because I tried to cap his minutes just so I wasn't getting to like a crazy amount of him, but even giving him 26 minutes, he comes out with a decent projection as somebody who I get to at a good amount. And I think he's probably more likely to go over that number than he is to go below it.
I truly have no idea what to do with his minutes. They could play anybody today. I'm very nervous about his ownership on DraftKings. To me, it doesn't make a ton of sense. I understand to a degree, but he does not have to be the guy that picks up all of that playing time. They have plenty of options to throw garbage minutes at backups today. That would give me a lot of pause in a large field GPP.
Yeah, and I didn't even give him any minutes, but he still projects pretty well with all the guys that are out. So that kind of is what it is for me. He's in about half my lineups right now.
Fair. Wow. Half. Whew.
I mean, here's where it's going to change. If we find out that the Heat guys are out and Goran Dragic becomes a stronger play, then Terrence Davis, just by that nature, is going to go down in my lineups.
Okay, that makes sense. What else you got going on for guards today?
All right. Other guards. So I'm pretty sure that he is a small forward on FanDuel, but Evan Fournier is somebody also who, or was he a shooting guard? He's shooting guard on FanDuel also. But Evan Fournier is somebody else who's popping up in a pretty high percentage of my lineups. He's been fairly terrible during his time with Boston, except still, I mean, we look at the situation there now that Marcus Smart is suspended, and sure, they're going to give minutes to Peyton Pritchard, but there's so few ball handlers on this team. It's, Tatum could create offense, Brown could create offense. Pritchard's done nothing when he's been in the starting lineup. So this seems like if there was ever going to be a breakout spot for Evan Fournier with the Celtics, it would be this game against the Charlotte Hornets, with the Charlotte Hornets also missing a bunch of guys. And I mean, the Celtics just really lacking on guys. Also last night he ended up starting for them. His first start with Boston, he played 35 minutes. So I think we could see him play a ton. And I mean, Evan Fournier, as much as he's been an up and down player, especially for DFS over his career, he's still overall quality basketball player. And I think better than people like to give him credit for, just because people have been burned by him so many times in DFS.
Spolstra says none will definitely play and that Robinson likely will too. So I'm going to go back and put Duncan Robinson back in the game.
All right. So I'm just going to assume those guys are playing now. Dumb coach speak, of course. So now the opposite will happen.
I don't want to say this out loud, but I trust Spolstra in this scenario.
I trust nobody.
DTA, man. DTA. All right. So that would be no hero, but none in. So that makes Dragic and none all that not interesting, I guess. And then I don't assume that Gabe Vincent plays 30 minutes again now. So I don't know. This just became not all that interesting, I guess.
I think Dragic is depending how many minutes you give Dragic, I gave him 27. I think that's going to make him moderately interesting for me on DK.
I gave him 26. Let me look at the price difference. Dragic is $5K on FanDuel, $5,400 on DraftKings. I don't think that I'll be getting to him one way or the other at that rate.
Let's see. I'm about to rerun this and see where everybody comes out for me. All right, so it looks like I'm going to have a very, very light amount of exposure of Goran Dragic and nothing really else from the Heat.
Okay, that is good to know for me at the very least. Let's get this crunch running again. Man, it just keeps coming out. Can you and I do shows on like a 4-game slate where we just get to actually talk about the slate for 5 minutes and have whatever we said matter for that 5 minutes? Because it just seems as though we have a slate and then everything we say just gets thrown in the garbage over and over and over again.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that happens.
No, I don't think so either. Our Cathelza with the super chat. Thoughts on Jaylen Brown on DraftKings now? I liked him before. I still like him now.
I don't think he's not somebody I have he's not like a total fade for me, but he's not a high priority play at all.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know who I'm getting to a little bit from the Heat is Bam Adebayo.
He's the only guy that I actually do like with any sort of volume. So I don't hate that shout.
I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, it looks like he is somebody who is coming up in a few of my lineups. I have him. I'm overweight to the field on him. His last ownership was really low on DraftKings. He was projected for 6% ownership, so that's the number at 8,700. I'm a little bit overweight to the field. The other thing also with the Heat, they need to start winning games. This is a team dangerously close to missing the playoffs. And I think we could see very, very heavy workloads from Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler going forward. So I gave each of them a couple extra minutes for that reason.
That would not shock me at all. Gene B. Kim with the super chat says, you guys deserve so much news. Thanks, Gene. Appreciate that a lot. Really do. Guys, schedule coming up for the rest of the night. We actually do have a show coming on after this bad boy at 8 p.m. Eastern time. PGA Live Before Lock. Ben Raza, Eric Lindquist breaking it all down for the Valspar this week. Ben and I put out a betting video for the Valspar, and keep your eyes peeled for a Kentucky Derby contenders video for Ben and I. Should be out probably sometime tomorrow morning. That's a good one. Don't listen to my advice in terms of betting on the Kentucky Derby, because I don't know a damn thing about betting on horses, but this is something that Ben does very regularly, not just the Derby, constantly, always telling me that he's going to the track. So Ben is well-versed in the ponies. Ooh, and then free content for today. You touched on it a little bit earlier. NBA ownership projections. That is part of our free premium tools for today. MLB player projections. I know you're watching the NBA show, but if you want to play MLB as well, Greg, I assume you're playing MLB. You can do a twofer if you want. MLB projections are free. PGA Pro plays are free. That's the best plays from all of our PGA content providers. And then NHL ownership also free for today. Anything interesting happened while I was doing that little speech? I assume like 5 guys got ruled out.
No, I did have my eyes on Twitter, but no, there has no additional guys ruled out.
Okay, well, good. I could take a breath. We've got 34 minutes to go until lock. Got my wife opening the front door, setting off my ring alerts. So I got to pause that stuff while we're doing this. Let's move on to the forwards then. What are you looking at? Who are your priority forwards for today's slate?
All right, so some of these guys, guard and forward eligible on DraftKings. We've already talked about them, like Terrence Davis and Evan Fournier. Chetty Osman, he's been priced up, but it's hard for me to get away from him. Something that we talked about with Chetty yesterday, he's either out of the rotation or he finds himself into the rotation, just play him all the minutes. Like there's no in-between with Chetty Osman in Cleveland, where they get a couple of guys out and it's like, all right, let's dust off Chetty. I know he was a DNP for 5 games in a row, but now he plays 38 minutes. So he's averaging 38 minutes over the last 2 games. I gave him 38 minutes again, and that makes him pretty difficult for me to stay away from.
Luckily, I don't think that I'm going to have much Chetty today. There's enough small forward options on FanDuel, and now that he's at 5,500, I can just sort of wash my hands of it. So I'm a little surprised actually to see that he's picking up as much ownership as he is. Like I still have him projected pretty aggressively, but he's the most owned small forward on FanDuel.
He's the most owned player overall on DraftKings right now.
Actually, sorry. Jaylen Brown has passed him now that we had some changes, but he's second. Cavs starting lineup: Garland, Okoro, Osmond, Love, and Allen. Nothing shocking there.
No.
If Chetty Osmond pays off the $5,500 price tag as a relative chalk play today, I'm happy to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel differently about him if he was 5,500, but he's 5,000 on DraftKings, so
very different.
Yeah, that's a price that's hard for me to get away from.
Like I would just rather have Bojan Bogdanovic at 5,200 at lesser ownership.
I like Bojan on this slate too. Somebody's gonna have to shoot the ball for Utah today when Jordan Clarkson isn't shooting.
Very true. All right, what else you got going on for small forwards?
Let's see. So Osman, we've talked about Terrence Davis, Evan Fournier, Joe Ingles. Once again, like in lineups that don't have Jordan Clarkson, I think you ideally want to have either Bogdanovic or Joe Ingles. Not as like a hard and fast rule that you need to have one of those 3 in lineups, but in spots where you are looking to not be aggressively on Clarkson, somebody's going to shoot the ball for Utah. And if it isn't Clarkson, then I think there's a good chance that either Ingles or Bogdanovic has a decent game. So Ingles and Bogdanovic are both forwards that I'm getting to, and I tried to limit there to be no to there be not all three of them in the same lineup, because individually I like all three of them as plays. But I think that's the way to pivot off of Clarkson, is go to either Bogdanovich or Ingles.
Am I crazy?
Maybe.
Oh man. For some reason, I have no idea why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We just tweeted out the Detroit Pistons starting lineup as Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, Corey Joseph, Wayne Ellington, and Dennis Smith Jr. All of those guys are out for tomorrow against Dallas. Swing and a miss on the news god on that one.
So I'm a little confused right now.
Rod Beard put out a tweet that all of those guys are out for Dallas against Dallas tomorrow, and I think it was read as a starting lineup.
Oh yeah, they don't play today. That's why I was really confused.
Certainly don't. That's why I looked at it and I was like, man, I don't remember talking about the Pistons at all. And this is my third show.
Isn't it funny that we're at the point of the season where a team's injury list can be assumed to be their starting lineup?
Yeah, it's. I mean, like, that's all the good players on the Pistons at the very least. Incredible. All right, anybody picking up a ton of ownership at the forward spot that you are a little surprised to see?
Let's see. Let me look through the latest ownership. I mean, to an extent, Dean Wade, I understand why. It's just weird to see him being one of the most popular plays on the slate, but it's hard for me to not give him over 30 minutes, given that Colin Sexton, Lamar Stevens, Isaiah Hartenstein, Matthew Dellavedova, Larry Nance Jr. are all out. The minutes have to go somewhere. So Dean Wade, I think, might be going a little bit over-owned, except I understand why. The field is there. Just kind of a name I wasn't expecting to pick up that much ownership. Like earlier in the day when I was trying to figure out, like, okay, who's going to actually play for Cleveland? I was like, oh, you know what? Dean Wade, maybe he'll be a play that the public isn't on. And I looked at the ownership. I was like, nope, not so much. The public is definitely there on him. I'm a little surprised Terry Rozier is as popular as he is at 7,700 with small forward eligibility on DraftKings. Like, to me, that is really, really high. Like, there's a lot of guys in that price range who I just think are better plays than him. Like Jaylen Brown, him is somebody who I'm not really getting to on DraftKings, but he's picking up less ownership than Terry Rozier in the same price range. So Rozier looks like somebody who's like aggressively overowned to me.
I'm taking a look at that right now in terms of the DraftKings and FanDuel side for forwards. Just need to put my filter on here. Haven't been looking at trying to get this crunch run. Ooh, Goga questionable for tomorrow. All right. So yeah, like, I guess when I said that I was a little nervous about that Chetty ownership, like, he does grade out well. It just feels high. And it feels like there's a ton of different 5K guys. Like Keldon Johnson is 5,200. That's not all that different than Chetty Osman. I feel like you can make some GPP pivots there. I feel like Chetty's a really good guy to pivot off of if you have like a fairly chalky lineup.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is chalk I'm eating. Like, if I'm going to be off one of the chalk cheaper guys for the Cavaliers while he's in my player pool, like, I don't have as much Dean Wade as the field has right now. Like, he's really popular. I think to me, just the floor is so high for Chetty when I think he's probably going to play like 38 minutes again.
Yeah, you're probably right on that one. I hate rostering that dude. I'd rather be on there when no one's on there or when he's priced at like a reasonable price tag. Oh, dude scares me. Just scares me. That's all. All right. Anybody else you want to touch on at the forward spot? We're about at the halfway point, 28 minutes to go before lock.
Let's talk about power forwards. You know, somebody who I actually like a little bit for this slate, and it's kind of funny. I think there's going to be a little bit of bias against him because of what happened the other day, but Kevin Love at 6,700 on DraftKings. Yeah. So, I mean, everybody knows that highlight from the other day, right? Where I don't even know what happened on that play. He apologized for it after the game. It was so bizarre in real time. Like, he couldn't have done that on purpose. He must have thought the ref had like passed the ball and he was just trying to hit the ball back to the ref or something. Apparently he was just frustrated and he's had it with Cleveland. He was just like, no, screw this. And just kind of gave the ball to Toronto. But even so, like, Kevin Love is still playing fairly well on a points per minute basis from a fantasy perspective this year. And there are so many guys out for Cleveland right now that I don't think it's crazy to think that Kevin Love plays, fairly well on a points per minute basis as long as the minutes are there. I mean, like, even last game where his minutes were cut a little bit short, which number one, he kind of appeared to have a crappy attitude, but then also they lost the game by 16 points. He still scored 25 DraftKings points in 24 minutes. So the points per minute production was there. And in competitive games, they've shown a willingness to give him bigger minutes. 2 weeks ago, he played over 30 minutes in back-to-back games. The issue has been that Cleveland doesn't really play in all that many competitive games, but I think there's potential for him to play 30 minutes again. And if that's the case, he's going to score probably over 30 fantasy points. So Kevin Love is somebody who I'm a little bit overweight to the field on. I think that there's more upside there than people would like there to be.
So we don't have a promo going on right now, but we do have a giveaway, and it's based on the NFL draft. So you should head on over to @Awesemo_com. That is our Twitter handle. You could win a free year of Awesemo Plus NFL. Just follow all of the instructions in the graphic. You got to predict the top 3 picks in the NFL draft, and then you would have a chance to win that free year. That's an incredible value, and all it does is take you looking at a tweet and making a response. So I see no reason you wouldn't want to do that. You could save yourself some money if you were planning on picking up our NFL package. And then I've got to give the shout out right now to OddsShopper. If you are placing any bets, you should be using OddsShopper. 1, to set alerts if you have any line movement. 2, to just simply track your bets. But 3, if you're not looking around for the best possible line that you can get, you are leaving money on the table. And there's absolutely no reason to do that. You can use OddsShopper for no cost whatsoever. It's not as if we're putting that behind the paywall right now. You can just use OddsShopper, and I think that you should do it. Again, Ben and I put that PGA betting video out every single week. We're using OddsShopper to shop around for those lines. By being able to find some guy that might be plus 500 instead of being plus 300, like that is massive for your long-term ROI. Don't miss out. Go to oddshopper.com, which I just learned is actually a thing. It's been oddshopper.awesemo.com for me for the longest time, but oddshopper.com will get you there as well. Nick's starting lineup is same as it usually is. And Sixers, Simmons, Curry, Green, Harris, Embiid. So nothing too crazy there. We got a super chat from Brandon Wagner. Is Jaren Jackson viable in a DK GPP?
Not for me. I mean, once his minutes start to go up, then he will be, but it's just not enough playing time. I assume they're going to continue to be really cautious with him, given that, I mean, they were so cautious with the surgery, right? Like he didn't come back for basically the entire season, and he only played 21 minutes last game. We've seen him play as much as 25 so far, but it's hard for me to expect that he gets too much on top of that. And it's not like he's, like super cheap or anything.
One other super chat. Wow. Coach Pop says he doesn't expect Derek White back this season after the ankle injury. That sucks.
Yeah, that is devastating to a lot of my best ball teams.
One other super chat from Noah. FanDuel GPP, power forward, last one in, Covington or Ariza? Not close. That's Covington.
Yes, that is Covington for me as well.
Yeah, that one. I don't get the sense that I will have Trevor Ariza, and I think that Robert Covington might end up being my most exposed power forward. So there's a bit of a difference between the two.
One more super chat here also from Naz Richardson. He's asking Ingles or Chetty for FanDuel cash. Given the ownership on Chetty, I think you definitely have to play him in cash.
Chetty at 23, Ingles at 19. So I would be more likely to play Ingles, but I don't want it to seem like I don't think Chetty is a good cash play in this scenario. I just have Ingles grading out slightly better at relatively comparable ownership. Chetty projected for 23%, Ingles at 19. To me, that is not really a difference. I on the surface, I prefer Ingles to Chetty. I don't know what the roster construction looks like and what that additional $600 brings you. I think that Chetty will likely be more popular in cash games.
To me, and then you make the point also there where it's, I wouldn't just leave $600 in salary on the table. Like if that's available, then you pay up. But on points per dollar basis, I'd go for Chetty in cash, especially just because I think he's going to be so popular. And more often than not, I'm going to recommend whichever guy is higher owned in cash games.
Yep. We're on the same page there. I think it might be slightly different for me, but Chetty would be one of like the 3 or 4 options you could actually have at small forward. And it wouldn't shock me if paying down was the more efficient process for that, because obviously you're getting to Clarkson at the shooting guard spot. If you don't want to just double up on that Ingles piece, I could understand why you would go that way.
Yeah. And I mean, you could also play Ingles and Chetty together.
Yeah. It's not out of the realm of possibility that is actually your 2-man combo there. We haven't talked about centers yet. 22 minutes to go. What do you got your eye on today for the big man?
By the way, Devin Vassell is going to start for Derek White tonight.
Okay. Meaningless to me, I believe. I had him in for 16 minutes previously. I did give Lonnie Walker the bigger bump, but I wasn't getting to Lonnie Walker either. So even if I flip-flop those minutes, Vassell is like a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. That is not a change that I'm all that concerned with making.
He's the flat min on DraftKings.
Oh, that's more of an interesting option then, I guess. Well, talking about it, how do you feel about Devin Vassell? He hasn't been great this year. 0.65 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. He is the flat min on FanDuel as well, although so was Lonnie Walker, and they have comparable rates. So even if I spin those guys on FanDuel, it's the same play for me.
Yeah, I think it's a little different with the 3,000 versus 3,500. I agree. For FanDuel, I would have no interest there. Vassell right here. Let's see. Has he made any starts this year? He made one start. He played 24 minutes.
We got starters for the Hawks, by the way.
Oh, okay. That's going to be more important than Devin Vassell.
Lou Will, Brandon Goodwin, Solomon Hill, John Collins, Clint Capella.
I'm going to like Lou Williams a lot now. He's not going to play if he's starting. It's not like he's going to play 24 minutes. He's going to play a full allotment of minutes, I'm assuming.
I gave him 28. I just don't know if I feel like I need to give him 30.
I had him at less than that. I had him for less minutes than you did earlier, and I'm going to bump that up. If I give him 30, he's going to pop up in a lot of my lineups, I think, and I'm not going to have an issue with that, especially because
Go ahead. Sorry.
The lineup, the slate locks in 20 minutes. How many people are really going to be swapping to Lou Williams at this point?
Look, here's the big piece for it. He's 4,500 on DraftKings, and I think that is important information. He's 5,400 on FanDuel, and I don't think it has the same sort of utility. Those extra 2 minutes are massive at 4,500 in comparison to 5,400. By the way, Alec Burks is inactive tonight.
Yeah, that was he's been dealing with he's been dealing with COVID, or we should just call it the Yordan Alvarez disease. You know, Yordan, I think 4 times now has been in the COVID protocol over the last year for the Astros.
Yordan Lochran?
Yordan Alvarez.
Oh, sorry. Same name. It's confusing sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think bumping Lou Will to 30 is probably realistic here. I do think that he's probably like the first guy to not be out on the floor if Philly smacks the hell out of him.
Yes.
So that is a little interesting to me.
Let's see. And it does have the widest spread of the game at 9.5 points. But either way, I mean, so the available guards for the Hawks today, it is Brandon Goodwin, Lou Williams, Skylar Mays, Chris Dunn, who I assume is going to be severely limited. And that's it. Like, they don't have that many guys to go to. If this game is relatively competitive, I think more often than not, it's because Lou Williams is one of those outlier scoring days.
Yeah, I don't disagree. If this game stays close and Lou Will isn't a part of it, I don't like something went really crazy or John Collins had 60 because I don't see where else it's coming from against Philly at full strength with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid out there. Like, how do you score? This should be, it could be really brutal for Atlanta.
Yeah, and then I think this goes also a little bit to something you said earlier, where it's like, how much does Lou Will have left? And I don't know. There's some days where he shows flashes of it, and there are other days where he looks like he wants to be at the wing joint, and he has no interest in playing basketball just because he's definitely lost a little bit of step in athleticism, but he's still able to score at times, and he's not shy to shoot at this point in his career either. So as long as he's on the court, I think the attempts for him to score fantasy points will be there.
By the way, and I just want to say this right now, I would also prefer to be at the wing joint. Chicken wings are delicious. I don't want anybody to think that we would be shaming them for being at the wing joint. By the way, guys, almost at 3,000 concurrent viewers, 668 likes. I think we could do even better than that. That looks like we've gained like 200 just from me asking at the beginning over Laffy's poor job. But if we can get into like the high 7s, even into the 8s, that seems pretty good. I mean, Laffy was talking about hitting records on likes yesterday, which was convenient considering I wasn't on the show afterwards to really carry his water. But if we can run that up a little bit higher, I would appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Sold dope. Goodwin versus Pritchard on FanDuel, and then thoughts on Gobert. Coin flip for me on Goodwin and Pritchard. I have basically the exact same amount of both. I like Gobert quite a bit. He's going to be my most exposed center on FanDuel.
I like Gobert on DraftKings as well, and I think he looks good on FanDuel, especially because of, number one, all the guys out, but then also favorable matchup, and then also just the FanDuel scoring is a little bit more favorable towards Gobert's game than the DraftKings scoring is. Yeah. And I prefer Goodwin slightly to Pritchard.
All right, time to start making some tweaks. Is there any news that you can think of off the top of your head that we are still waiting on that is incredibly important?
Let me think. Who is on the injury report that we have not gotten news about yet? Steven Adams, because of Willy Hernangomez playing well last game.
Yes.
That's the most important one.
I would agree. What are your thoughts on Willy Hernangomez if Steven Adams happens to be out?
So, especially considering that we've not gotten any news here yet, and are you updating lineups right now? I could talk for a little bit longer if
I'm doing whatever. We could have a back and forth. We have plenty of time. There's 16 minutes left. I'm feeling good.
All right. So Willy Hernangomez is 4,200 on DraftKings. So it's not like that's a lock and load type of price, except still, I mean, if we look at his overall points per minute production this year, and the fact that I'm assuming that Adams, if he does get ruled out, is going to be after lock. That's not a swap people are going to make. That's the number one thing we've seen this year. The easiest way to be contrarian this year is just by updating your lineups after the slate locks, because people are generally not doing that. So Willy Hernangomez last game played 31 minutes, had 33 DraftKings points. For the season as a starter, 25.5 minutes per game, 29.33 DraftKings points. So he's a very good value play if he starts, and I assume he's going to go under owned. So if we get that news, I hope it's kind of closest to game time. I'm going to be trying to get him into as many lineups as possible.
Yeah, I will be getting to him quite a bit if that news pops out, and I will have to just do a lot of late swappy swap. Ligarian Bridgewater, Tatum and DeLon Wright, or Westbrook and Wade in a DK cash game?
Let's see. Let me pull up the names here. All right. Tatum and DeLon Wright, or that has to be Westbrook and Wade, I think, based on ownership. Let's see. Where's Westbrook right now? I assume Westbrook coming in at 20%, whereas Tatum not really picking up that much ownership. 9,600 is also a little bit of a steep price to pay for Tatum. So give me the Westbrook and Wade end.
Okay. And then Soul Dope again. Last question on FanDuel. Brown versus Porter. That would be Jaylen Brown and Michael Porter. I have more Jaylen Brown as of right now. I have Michael Porter grading out as a better play relative to salary. But for right now, Jaylen Brown, I have enough salary. It's easier to pay down elsewhere. So I'm getting to a little bit more Jaylen Brown. I have a hard time separating the two, though.
Jaylen Brown for me.
Okay. Any more questions coming in? No super chats. So we're going to switch it over to Premium Slack. DK Priest, thoughts in a FanDuel GPP. I just bumped him up a little bit now. He is projected for 6% ownership. We have Damian Lillard at 28. I like that pivot if you've got a relatively chalky lineup. Look, I love Dame. He's going to be my most exposed point guard. But if you build a very chalky lineup and Damian Lillard is in it, I think pivoting to Ja Morant in a large field GPP is an interesting spot at the exact same salary.
I like the logic. I could get behind that as well.
Bingo. Love it. God, I don't know what to do with Jordan Clarkson today on FanDuel because he's so owned, but I just find that ownership to be incredibly incorrect.
So what do you think is a fair ownership for Jordan Clarkson on this slate?
He showed up in the optimal when I ran my stuff at 26%, which obviously is pretty low, but that is still the highest number. If I get to 30 and change, I'm happy there. I just think that there are a couple other options in that price range. Like he's 6,300. It's not like we're getting him where Donovan Mitchell this is the first game out and Jordan Clarkson's still 5K. That would make a lot of sense to me. 6,300 is a lot.
If I was to say his ownership is going to be above or below his current projected ownership on FanDuel, I would take the under on that number.
I would take the over.
Really?
Yeah, given what I've seen so far on FanDuel this year, I feel like we see guys like this at 47, and then I open up now I will say it might be a little bit different now that contest is a $7 entry fee instead of being $333 and 130 entries or 130,000 entries. But I feel like in situations like this, I would go and look at Jordan Clarkson and I would think that I was neutral. And then I would look at his ownership and he would be like 58.
It's possible. I think that Evan Fournier is going to become really, really popular on FanDuel.
Okay.
I think that he's somebody who could not quite rival the ownership of Clarkson, but I think that he could be a lot chalkier, I think, than a lot of people realize, just because at least the way I'm built, when I built dummy lineups earlier for FanDuel, and like I said before, I'm only playing on DraftKings tonight, but I was getting to a lot of Fournier.
Oh no, over under in chat said he agrees with me and Clarkson is too high owned. Lock in your Clarkson, folks, because I'm not sure I've ever seen a right take on that one. So that is making me very, very nervous about everything that just came out of my mouth. Whew. I got to change my I'm pushing Clarkson back up. Full lock button at this point. Halliburton and Boyan or Ingles and Clarkson in a DK single entry from Mark Atelza.
Let me read off those names. Can you read those names to me one more time?
Certainly can. Halliburton and Boyan, Ingles and Clarkson.
If it was a cash game, I think it'd be pretty easy, Ingles and Clarkson, but I'll go the other side for tournament purposes.
All righty. Oh God, man, I have so much Tyrese Halliburton right now. Not that I feel bad about it because he's Tyrese Halliburton in a really nice spot, but feels like a lot. I just can't get away from that Halliburton Clarkson construction on FanDuel, and I'm like desperately trying to do so.
Let me see if we've updated. I'm getting to a lot of Lou Williams right now. I'm curious to see what his ownership is.
Got to figure that it's up, right?
We just got an update. Let's see where it's at. Lou Williams, 16%. I don't hate that. Okay. On DraftKings. I think that is too low. He is at 0.6 on FanDuel.
That can't be right. He was at 1 the last time I had it. It went down?
No, he was at 0.1 before.
I had him at 1.1, whatever update I had before.
Oh, well, then I guess we looked at different updates. But yeah, the last update I looked at, he was at 0.1 on FanDuel.
Well, I would like more than that. I mean, like, not that I think that he is some substantial play on FanDuel. I think that I outlined my case at this point of why I don't think it's all that crazy to get there. But at the same time, I mean, if you're trying to win a GPP today, don't be surprised if Lou Will has a big game.
I would definitely like if he had a big game. That would be beneficial to me.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I'm bumping him up now, but I'm still having trouble getting to him. I just have so many guys ahead of him. Like, would you rather have Lou Will or Devontae Graham on FanDuel today? Devontae Graham's at 20% ownership.
Relative to ownership, I'd rather have Lou Williams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, if we're just talking about projection and price, then yeah, Devontae Graham. But relative to ownership, Lou Williams.
Okay. Anything else you're seeing from your crunches right now that you want to point out? I could say right now, a lot of Jaylen Brown, Halliburton, Clarkson, Lillard, Rudy Gobert, Robert Covington for me as I work my way through this.
Let's see. Is there anything that I am surprised by? I mean, the Lou Williams exposure does seem pretty aggressive for me, except I'm fine with it given that the field isn't as high as I think they should be. We didn't really talk about him before, but what did you do with Delon Wright?
So for Wright on FanDuel, it's a little bit different. I think he's 5,500. I just basically don't have him. What is his price on DraftKings?
4,900.
Okay. Very different play then. I think that I would be significantly more likely to get there, but I have him grading out as my 16th ranked point guard on FanDuel. So even if I felt like I was being pessimistic, the best that I can get him to is like the same Peyton Pritchard, Brandon Goodwin range. So I'm not too worried about it.
So
talk to me about him on DraftKings. Yeah.
So here's something else I've been doing a lot with guys that I think are good value plays already on DraftKings. I've been trying to get some more of them if they're playing in the last game of the slate at this time of year. The reason being is I like having that flexibility, especially for now. So that's something else that goes to like Terrence Davis before. And you said like, oh, he's in half your lineups. Yes, I don't think he will be by the time we get through the actual slate. But the reason I like having him there now is let's say that Steven Adams is ruled out. And I know that he's a different position and also different price point than Willy Hernangomez, but I just like having lineup spots available for later in the night, just where I have the flexibility to make swaps. Because we've seen those guys open up basically every slate at this point of the year. We're seeing guys ruled out all the time after lock. And I always want to give myself as much flexibility as possible to get to them. So guys like Delon Wright and Terrence Davis, I already think they're good value plays, but they also hold the roster spot for me in the last slate of the last game of the slate. It's where I have the ability to swap off if other really good value plays open up that the field isn't going to be on.
What's your thoughts on Joel Embiid tonight?
I do not have exposure to him right now.
Dude just scares me, man.
Like, I mean, he's going to have, I mean, obviously he has a massive ceiling, but I would rather get to Russell Westbrook. I'd rather get to Nikola Jokic. And the other thing too is these, especially the Wizards, the games matter to them more than the games matter to Philly at this point. These are teams that really need a win. Also, like, Embiid's been on the injury report a bunch recently, and he said himself that he's not healthy, which to me is a huge red flag. Like, and also in a game where they're 9.5-point favorites, like I think there's going to be a lot of games down the stretch of the season where the Sixers have a pretty comfortable lead, and they're just going to be playing Embiid, like 28 to 30 minutes. They're not going to push him as much as teams like the Nuggets have to push Jokic. The Wizards have to push Westbrook.
I've got to ask you this question because I saw somebody ask me, but I actually want to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Anthony Davis? We had a little bit of a discussion about him on Monday. Wonder if that's changed anything for you today.
I don't have exposure to him today either. There's so many guys to pay up for on the slate, and while his minutes, he supposedly doesn't have restrictions. Not like we're seeing him play 36 minutes or anything like that at this point.
Yeah.
So they say he's not restricted, but he kind of is.
I have 24% on FanDuel right now, and I am actively working to add a little bit more. Okay. We have him projected for 5% ownership. And the same reasoning that I had on Monday is the same reasoning I have here. He's Anthony Davis, and he has an enormous ceiling that is unrivaled by most guys on this slate. And if I'm trying to win 100K, I wouldn't mind seeing it be Anthony Davis at 5% ownership.
So because of positionality, I think he makes more sense on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings.
Yeah, totally agree there. One other guy that we haven't touched on, we have 5 minutes to go until lock, which I didn't totally realize until right now, which gave me a minor panic. Any thoughts on Time Lord now that he's back? 5,500 and I believe 5,600 on DraftKings. That's off the top of my head, though.
I have him in a couple of lineups, but not somebody I'm really all that invested in. I'm still a little concerned that they've been so conservative with his playing time over the course of the season. Also, they've been really cautious bringing him back from this injury that even with them having, Marcus Smart out and the Celtics really needed to win games right now, I don't feel super confident they're going to give him, like a massive amount of minutes right out of the gate. Okay.
Yeah, I have 10% on FanDuel right now. Obviously, his game is very much better on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. Yeah. So if he can go on a block and steal party, I do have some shares there at 5,500. I like that sort of price tier. We'll see if that actually holds up. Do you have your lineups in?
Uploading them right now, but I could talk through it. This is just mindless copying pasting.
I'm doing the mindless copying pasting as well. I'm just whatever I've got in there is going to be what I've got right now. So we are doing the exact same thing. Grabbing my CSV now. 4 minutes to go. I'm feeling pretty good. I guess I could. Do you want to touch on any of your exposures? Anything that caught your eye?
We could answer some of the questions. By the way, why is this page so slow to load? But here, we could answer some. We got a bunch of questions added us in the Slack chat. We can answer some of those also. Yeah,
go for it.
From
we got another super chat from Soul Dope. If you want to hit that quickly.
Or yeah, go read that off.
Tatum, Porter, Allen versus Collins, Brown, and Gobert. I can't answer that, man. It's a coin flip. It's the same. That's the same group of three people as far as I'm concerned. They're like six of the best plays that I have.
Let's see if I have more of a. I have to find. Okay, here we go. Here's the super chat. Tatum, Porter, Allen, or Collins, Brown, Gobert. I lean towards the Collins, Brown, Gobert end.
Yeah, I like all of that. I have 25% or more of pretty much every single guy in that situation other than Jared Allen. And I would have 25% if the center position allowed it. And if there were two of them. What was the question you saw on Slack that you wanted to touch on?
Lock Shad had asked us, is Wanamaker a good play on DraftKings for GPP? I thought it was kind of an interesting question just because I had exposure, a very small amount of Brad Wanamaker until we got the Lou Williams news. And then me getting to a bunch of Lou Williams just kind of took a lot of those lower rostered point guards for me out of my player pool. So
okay.
To answer the question, I don't think that Wanamaker is unplayable, but I am not playing him because there are other point guards I like more, Lou Williams in particular.
Fair enough. Touching on the exposures that I have on FanDuel, since it's 6:58, whatever we answer isn't going to be able to get into anybody's lineup at this point. My most exposed plays for today: Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, Jason Tatum, Robert Covington, Jaylen Brown, Dennis Schroeder, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Rudy Gobert. Every one of those guys that I mentioned is north of 30%.
All right. So for me, Lou Williams, Jordan Clarkson, Delon Wright, Terrence Davis, Chetty Osman, Evan Fournier, and Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook as the high-end guys.
Bang. There we go. 6:59 and 24 seconds. So you guys have 35 seconds to get your lineups in. If you already have your lineups in and you haven't yet hit that like button, let's see if you can hit that and run the number up over 800 likes. We're at 747. We're like a jet. Fly that jet directly into the sky. That could have went a different direction. Fly it into the sky. Let's see if we can get 800. Oh, how you feeling about this slate?
Not great. But here's, I also feel pretty strong that there's going to be guys ruled out. I'm going to end up rostering guys an hour from now that I don't really think that I would have thought. I mean, Willy Hernangomez is one for sure that I could see myself swapping onto a lot, but there's going to be other stuff that pops up.
Up to 801. Look at that. Ask and ye shall receive. And it is 7 p.m., which means we are locked. Greg, any final thoughts before we get out of here and then we chill for an hour before the PGA Live before Lock Show gets started?
Let's go Lou Williams.
If he's really 1% owned on FanDuel, then I'll agree with you because I have 9. I assume that when he's like 4 or 5, then I won't agree with you and I won't want him to play well. Starting lineup, that's an old starting lineup, so that's fine. So I think we're done. Let's go sweat some lineups. Let's go eat some dinner.
Let's do it.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. One last time, hit that like button on your way out the door. We got PGA Live before Lock coming up at 8, and then a ton of other content on the Awesemo.com YouTube channel constantly. But we'll be starting it up again tomorrow for the 6-gamer. Nice, calm 6-game slate for Thursday. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you later. Lou Will 11.